This might sound wild coming from me, but there used to be a time when I loved the Far Cry games. I even considered it one of my favorite franchises for a while. There's actually several Ubisoft franchises that followed that trend for me, where I loved them for a while and then just ended up totally dropping them at some point when I felt they'd gone a direction I wasn't vibing with anymore. In Far Cry's case, however, my favorite game in the series was actually one of the most divisive, an entry that Ubisoft has seemingly tried to distance itself from since beginning development on Far Cry 2 all the way up to now. The franchise's black sheep, as I call it. Far Cry Instincts. Instincts is a very unique game given that it's a complete reimagining of the game it's based on despite coming out roughly a year after. Both games feature the same protagonist, same characters, and a very similar plotline and premise, but with wildly different executions both narratively and mechanically. For example, the original Far Cry was renowned for its vast, open-ended level design that let players approach each objective from a variety of different angles. When Ubisoft decided they wanted to launch Far Cry on the Microsoft Xbox, however, it quickly became apparent that the hardware simply could not support the massive scope, levels, and details seen in that game. So they just decided to develop a completely different version of the game from scratch with far more linear level design using the same assets and engine as the first game. Doing this allowed them to scale down the size of the game enough for the Xbox to handle it. Oh yeah, and of course they added superhuman abilities to the gameplay loop called feral powers that basically turned the protagonist into a superhero, or I guess maybe more of an anti-hero. Since they had to basically remake the whole game from scratch anyway, the team also added in a plethora of cool new features not seen in the original, like dual-wielding weapons, sort of improved stealth mechanics, booby traps, and significantly more swearing and far edgier writing.
I bet you have a really great reason why you didn't tell me about the apeshit circus freak with the giant fucking arm.
That might have sounded excessive, but I feel like that'd be my realistic reaction to that situation in real life. Although the main character shares the same name, look, and origin as the original game's protagonist, they are so vastly different in personality that there's no way they could be mistaken for the same person.
Call me Doyle.
How do I know I can trust you?
I know you can hear me. You have to get in the water immediately.
Who the fuck are you?
I remember being like a 10-year-old kid seeing a friend playing this game and wanting it so badly. I didn't have an Xbox at the time, so I had to see if it was available on PC, and to my excitement, I saw it was and asked my mother to get me a copy, which she kindly did. So I installed it on the family computer and played it, albeit on the lowest settings. This matters because the reason I wanted it was to play with the cool feral powers. I wanted to hunt people like a predator and slash them with a superpowered melee attack. So I kept getting further and further into Far Cry on the PC, wondering when the powers showed up, and even becoming excited when the mutants showed up, thinking it was finally about to happen. Of course, I beat the game, and the powers never happened. Although I did actually love the game, I felt very confused and a little disappointed. You can forgive a 10-year-old kid for not realizing that these are two totally different games. Come on, these covers look pretty similar. Eventually, a couple of years later, I did finally end up getting an Xbox and a copy of Far Cry Instincts, the one I had wanted from the start, and it became one of my favorite games. Yeah, I don't care, I adored this game. I've probably beaten it half a dozen times in my life because I loved it so much. It's not even that good. The gunplay is janky and hard to use, the vehicles are glidey and feel strangely weightless and unfun to drive, and I mean ultimately, it's worse than the original in a lot of ways, but I didn't care then, and I still don't now. This one gave me feral powers and let me dual-wield automatic machine guns. No, but seriously, although the original Far Cry is a far better game mechanically, Instincts overpowers it in narrative concept and just overall rule of cool. Now, there have technically been 5 games released in the Far Cry Instinct spin-off series, but 3 of those games are really just ports, so in actuality, there's only 2 real games here. You've got the first Far Cry Instincts, which is just a reimagining of the original Far Cry made for the Microsoft Xbox, and then there's Far Cry Instincts Evolution, which is a direct sequel to Instincts that released shortly after, also for the Microsoft Xbox. Though due to its significantly shorter story length, a lot of people consider it to be more of an expansion than a proper sequel. This is the true duology of the Instinct series. Far Cry Instinct Predator is just a packaged port of both Instincts and Evolution to the Xbox 360 with a few minor graphical upgrades. This is really the only game you need to play if you're interested in this series. Far Cry Vengeance is an altered port of Evolution designed to run on the Nintendo Wii and is the only Far Cry game to ever be released on a Nintendo console. I assume they opted to adapt the Evolution plotline instead of the original Instinct story because the significantly shorter campaign terrain made it an easier developmental endeavor. I'll have a section covering the Vengeance spin-off later in the video, don't worry. Lastly, Paradise Lost was an arcade machine that featured light guns and utilized the assets and story from the original Far Cry Instincts for its gameplay. For this video, I'll be using footage of and talking about Far Cry Instincts Predator, since all of the aforementioned games are just different versions of Instincts and Evolution, and both of those are included in this packaged port. Now you might be thinking, if all of that was spun off from the original Instincts, clearly it must have been popular, right? So why the hell did I refer to it as a black sheep in the title? Well, although Instincts was pretty well received at the time and did develop a kind of cult fan base, the series has consistently distanced itself more and more from this entry ever since Far Cry 2, and more impactfully, 3 course-corrected the series into a different direction.
Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy.
The Far Cry games have always been experimental, of course, with spin-offs like Blood Dragon and Primal demonstrating that the franchise is willing to go in a variety of different directions both tonally and mechanically. But ever since the Instinct series fizzled out, the brand has become consistently less edgy with every new entry, and in my opinion, Far Cry 3 was the last game with any real edge to it, and even that one pales in comparison to this one. Now the Instincts games are pretty much never referenced or even really acknowledged by Ubisoft anymore. No word of a remaster or PC port or anything. You get the point. Built on the CryEngine, Instincts is still very visually impressive for an original Xbox game released in 2005. Yes, this is technically the 360 port, but it wasn't designed with 360 hardware in mind, so even as a port, it is still just an Xbox game. A disclaimer here is that the footage you're seeing is emulated, so there may be a quirk or two here that you wouldn't see on native hardware, but this is currently the only way to play the game on PC, so the fact that it even runs and looks this smooth is good enough for me. There's a few issues, like every so often when respawning, the lighting will render in strangely, causing an extreme overexposure of the bloom effect, which can be rectified by just reloading your last checkpoint. And then there's the issue that after every single mission, the game crashes. That said, when you boot the emulator back up, it immediately resumes, placing you at the start of the next level, so it was just a mild inconvenience. Even still, I would love to see this game get a proper PC port. The CryEngine has always been some of the most powerful video game engine tech on the market, so this game looking this good despite the technical limitations of the time is really just a testament to what Crytek was capable of back in the day. But like, I've seen what the original Far Cry can look like when properly optimized and ran on modern hardware. I mean, look at this. I want that for this game so badly. Both of these two games run on the exact same engine, and hypothetically, Instincts could look like this with a proper port and some tweaking. Maybe someday. Let me dream. Although Far Cry is known as a Ubisoft series, and for all intents and purposes it is, this game was where Ubisoft Montreal actually took over development. The first Far Cry was developed by Crytek, with Ubisoft acting only as a publisher. This fact has thrown people for a bit of a loop for quite some time. Even now, 20 years later, I've still seen people online who are confused about where Far Cry 1 sits in the series chronology. Not that the series is super consistent anyway, but still, I can tell you that I'm pretty sure Far Cry 1 is not canon. At least, not to the rest of the series. It was developed by Crytek and is arguably canon in their own little universe along with Crysis, but not with the rest of the Far Cry franchise. No, oddly enough, I think this spin-off is technically the canon first game, as opposed to the real first game. There's a lot of story reasons for me to think that, but explaining them would require bringing up a bunch of other games from the series and would probably make the video more confusing overall, so in the interest of keeping focus, I'll just say that this game and the sequels were both developed and published by Ubisoft, so this is technically the canon Far Cry 1 as opposed to the real Far Cry 1. Since Ubisoft had to develop their own version of the game for console release anyway, they opted to make a few changes to their iteration of the game when they started developing it. For example, in the original Far Cry, Jack Carver was a former US Special Forces soldier who had since retired. A decent man and a veteran at that. Nah, that was too boring for this edgier retelling, so this Jack Carver is an ex-Navy officer who was dishonorably discharged for illegal activities like arms dealing, and is far more morally ambiguous than his PC counterpart. After being run out of the US, he currently makes a living ferrying tourists around various islands and locations located in Micronesia in order to remain off the grid. That is, until a journalist named Valerie Cortez shows up offering Jack a pretty big sum of money to ferry her out to a remote island called Jackatan, which is where the game starts, as the two arrive to the island on a sunny afternoon. The game opens on a rising shot of a massive wrecked ship as we pan over to a smaller boat where we see both Valerie and our main character standing. This is one of the only times in the game we see our own character from an outside perspective.
This is perfect, Mr. Carver. My editor wasn't joking about this place.
Whatever. Listen, I'll swing around to the east so you can get some shots of the wrecks. But this is as close as we get.
Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that.
Here we go.
Back in port, you said something about old World War II gun emplacements.
And I also said something about reefs. As in, I just bought this tub and I don't want to have to fix the hull again.
What, didn't the Navy teach you how to navigate through shallow water?
No. It just taught me never to trust a court-appointed lawyer and to always protect my investments.
Look, I need to get in closer. So, if I wanted to maybe rent that little water scooter of yours for a couple of hours, what would that cost?
That's not a good idea.
What's the matter, Jack? Afraid my check won't clear?
Miss Cortez.
Here's 200. Call it a bonus for getting me safely back to Pompeii.
Valerie hops on a jet ski and speeds off towards the island, assuring Jack that she'll be back in 2 hours, so Jack decides to lay down and have himself a nap while he waits.
What time is it? Cortez! Cortez!
Well, that's ominous.
Fuck. Hey, yeah, No, there's no problem here. I have a fishing permit. Motherfucker! Ah! No, there's no way! Who the hell?
Well, there goes Jack's boat, and we're stuck in shallow waters being shot at by a random helicopter with no rhyme or reason as to why it's happening. So we start swimming towards that shipwreck and try to stay underwater as long as we can so that chopper doesn't chop us into pieces. Once we're inside, we can take a breath, but they're still firing off shots at us from outside, not to mention we can hear them searching this wreckage for us.
Don't take any chances. We've got him outnumbered. Ice low! Ooh, ooh, ooh! Let's get rolling!
We can't stay here. We need to get off this boat and try to disappear into the jungle, which is where we can climb these vines to start making our way deeper into the island. It'll be way harder to spot us now, even with their aerial advantage. We can't take any chances with these people. Pirates or mercenaries or whatever they are, we're just gonna have to kill first and not even bother asking questions. We have drawn first blood, but they blew up our boat and tried to kill us, and whoever they are, they're certainly organized. These can't be pirates. It's gotta be mercenaries or some kind of local militia or possibly a government-funded shadow op. Either way, there's no sense in us sticking around to find out. Something Far Cry Instincts adds to the formula of the original are these Rambo-like tree branch traps that wind back and snap forward to impale and kill whoever triggers one. If you need to lure an enemy into it, then you just throw a rock.
It's a rock!
Yeah, like that. And now we've got a handgun to even the odds a little bit. Realistically, you can pretty much play the entire game without ever really using these branch traps. They're a really cool idea, but honestly, the stealth is so wonky and unreliable that it's actually more of a hassle to try and integrate them into your gameplay than it is to just ignore their existence for 8 out of every 10 combat scenarios. And now I've got 2 guns. Another similar stealth mechanic that you'll use like 1 or 2 times and then never again is this ability to roll Jack over on his back to shoot up through the cracks in the floor. Again, the foundation was here for a really compelling stealth game, but both the enemy AI and overall level design just are not up to snuff enough to accommodate these kinds of stealth mechanics. Instincts wants to be an action game. It just does. All of these potentially compelling stealth mechanics simply do not ever matter, and the game rarely even gives you a chance to use them in a smooth way. Every combat instance is pretty much guaranteed to become a total shootout the second one NPC dies, and you get spotted so easily from so far away that it just makes trying to use them feel pointless. I applaud the developers for programming all of this in, but the game itself just seems to reject their inclusion.
Hello? I'm talking to the individual who just had his boat destroyed. I know you can hear me. You have to get in the water immediately.
Who the fuck are you?
Later, there are gunships inbound on you. Napalm, do you understand?
Oh, shit.
Well, that's our cue to leave.
have much time. Call me Doyle. The most important thing is, you're not safe on that beach.
How do you know my name, Doyle? And why should I trust you?
Your passenger, Val Cortez. You trust her?
She's a paying customer.
She's also a licensed chopper pilot. Do as I say, and you'll be able to meet her at a helipad not far from you.
This is nuts. I'm not gonna go wander around some jungle crawling with militia rejects. Forget it.
No. First, you're gonna head inland to a small village. The mercenaries will have a command tent there. It won't be hard to find. Grab a map and any other toys you can find.
Well, it doesn't seem like we have much of a choice. There's an island of mercs all over the place, and every single one of them wants us dead for some reason. The red Hawaiian shirt probably isn't making our situation any easier either. Now, the game is still very much trying to appear as though it features functioning stealth mechanics. Do not be fooled, it doesn't. You will see me try my best to incorporate stealth to the utmost of my abilities by sneaking up on enemies, backstabbing them, and making use of suppressed firearms when I can. You'll also see me give up on trying this fairly quickly into the game's progression, save a few occasions later on. I will say that the game is trying to entice you to play stealthily like a predator stalking prey. I see what they were going for here, I really do, and I'm going to harp on this point a lot later on, but a remake of this exact game in the modern Far Cry engine would be so good. Not the OG classic Far Cry, I want the feral powers, edgy Jack, and stupid plot, and I want it all built on the structure of a modern Far Cry title. Now, something later Far Cry games would execute very well is this idea of using binoculars to mark your targets from a distance and set up a plan of attack before attempting to infiltrate an encampment. This feature is very much present in this game as well, but only in these first few missions, and it just doesn't work as effectively here due to the linearity of the level design and jankiness of the enemy AI. Again, I did try my best to play the game the way it wanted me to and take advantage of every mechanic I could. Let me tell you something, while I am happy to take accountability for not being the best aim ever by any stretch, in this case it genuinely isn't my fault. This game was an original Xbox exclusive until it was ported to the 360, and both versions have some of the clunkiest and most obtuse aiming I've ever seen before. I had to rely so much on auto-aim that my goal became just trying to aim well enough for the auto-aim to take over, and even that was like pulling teeth sometimes.
Doyle, who's the wingnut with the custom gunship, huh?
Crow. He's the local commander. Jack, if nothing else, trust me on this. Avoid him at all costs.
So the game shows us a map with a few options on how to make our way to the next camp where Val is waiting to fly us out of here. And to the game's credit, there are multiple paths to progress. Kind of. I mean, it's like 3 different mildly similar routes that all progress to the same point, but I mean, hey, it does offer some autonomy to the player. Jack is warned of some guy named Crow, and it seems like he's the leader of whoever these mercs are. We're told to steer clear of him, but it shouldn't be too hard since he just flew off and we're pretty close to the helicopter that'll get us out of here anyway. I opted to try and find a more unusual way forward by climbing some vines and making my way through a valley where I'm able to ambush some mercs camped out by this waterfall. From there, we have to cut our way through a few dozen more of these guys, all of whom are armed with submachine guns. Eventually, however, we are able to make it to some kind of larger camp where they've got some buildings and a barbed wire fence set up. Seems like the deeper we go, the more well established they are. So of course we set off the alarm. So you can actually stealth this part by using your binoculars to eavesdrop and then sneak through, but trust me when I say it's easier to just start blasting. After clearing the encampment, it's past time to get the hell out of here, which is where we're introduced to the game's vehicle combat, and let me tell you, it's really something. Bad. It's bad. There's actually a variety of different vehicles across both this game and the expansion, ranging from Jeeps to ATVs to jet skis, boats, and even hang gliders. And they all control terribly, but the ground vehicles control the worst, and coincidentally, those are the most common ones you'll use. It's so clear they wanted this to feel intense and cinematic, but instead it just feels floaty and hard to control. These segments are some of the worst parts of the game in my opinion, just mad annoying. After making it to the communications dish, we may as well destroy this tower while we're here. some of the destructible buildings like this are genuinely very fun. I enjoyed it every time I got to blow up a tower or something and watch it crumble. Hopping back into a Jeep, we try resuming our journey to link up with Val and get off this island until some unforeseen circumstances block our path.
Carver, you still with me?
Yeah, I kind of lost my wheels. Look, you have any idea how I can get out of here?
One step at a time. You still have to get Val away from the mercs, and you're totally outnumbered. You need to switch to guerrilla tactics.
I can do sneaky.
Proceed into the village and look for the mercs' armory. Find a way to take that out, and you'll improve your odds.
Finding Val just got a whole lot more complicated. We're back on foot and all alone on an island that's seemingly crawling with these mercenaries. Who are they working for? Your guess is as good as Carver's at this point, but like he said, we can do sneaky. Well, we can't, but I wasn't sure of that yet. I had yet to give up on the stealth gameplay at this point, so as we ventured deeper into the island, I wanted to try and remain undetected by relying on placing these branch traps around the trees. I mean, it technically can work, but you really have to go out of your way to make it happen, which is the opposite of how a stealth mechanic should probably feel. Like, it should be easier to be stealthy than loud, right? Also, another thing I feel like should have been a no-brainer here is that you should not be able to dual-wield weapons yet. Jack is just a normal human guy, and yet he's able to hold 2 MP5 submachine guns and fire them with relative accuracy like it's nothing. This mechanic should have been saved until after you acquire your feral powers. This is the hardest part of the game, by the way, because the game was balanced with you having those abilities in mind, but you still don't have them at this point, which means you are very severely outmatched. I don't want to keep harping on this, but it's very clear that they wanted you to rely on stealth to get through this section, and I tried. I promise you, I really did try. But it's just so broken and inconsistent that I couldn't manage to do it, and so I tried going loud. This also didn't work because you were so utterly outnumbered and surrounded by snipers that you won't last trying to go this route. I'll give the developers this, you really do feel pretty close to powerless here. At this point in the game, you are very much the prey and your enemies are the predators hunting you. The way I was able to get through this bit was pretty much just by running past everyone while hugging the corners of the map as much as possible. I guess that's kind of speedy stealth in a way, but it was totally reliant on the fact that I died enough to know where the enemies were hiding so I could avoid them. Finally, I am able to sneak into one of the mercenary armories, raid it for armor and ammunition, place a C4 charge, and... this is guerrilla warfare. We have to be extreme or we won't make it off this island. With their armory destroyed, reinforcements start coming in by the dozens, which is where this little mounted turret comes in handy. This isn't technically a turret section since it's totally optional and you can play this whole sequence without using it. The whole game is like this, so technically there's no turret sections. We take out as many of them as we can before moving on, which is when I see a small army of them coming over a nearby hill and end up pulling out a second MP5 and firing off rounds like a madman. Once I've cleared out the small squad of mercs, we're able to commandeer an ATV and punch it to put some distance between us and that armor.
Hey look, Jack Carver. Didn't even know your name until this sweet piece here started giving up details.
Yeah, she's good that way.
Don't listen to that shit, Jack! He's just trying to...
You've made a lot of trouble for my employer, Jack. A little payback's in order. You're gonna take a nice quiet drive up to my HQ where Miss Cortez goes into free fall. Got some friends here to help you find the way.
I guess we're following Crow's helicopter to some kind of HQ. Dude does not seem to be the friendliest, but I guess he's in good company with the rest of the island here, not to mention Jack himself. What follows is a host of multiple different combat arenas strung together with small exploration tidbits. I do feel the need to say that later levels, particularly one specific mission in the Evolution sequel, do a great job of significantly opening these missions up to offer bigger landscapes and more options for how to approach each encounter. But these early missions feel so linear that it's almost hard to believe this is even a Far Cry game. After making our way to the HQ where Val is supposedly being held, we work our way through the building trying to find her, but she doesn't seem to be here. The whole place is disturbingly empty even. So either this is a trap or enough of those mercs are out looking for us that there were none left in the base. Either way, I need to find the gate controls before I can go any further, and someone killed the guys in here. Who and why? What's going on around here? Forget it, let's get that gate open and find Val.
Doyle, you better pick up. I've managed to track down Crow's chopper. but there's no sign of him or Val.
Perfect timing, Jack. From what I've heard, sounds like Val managed to grab a gun and make a break for it. She's on foot, headed north toward the boat docks.
That's convenient.
Oh, so this was her work. Makes sense, at least. She's got a head start, and no doubt Crow is hot on her tail as she tries to escape, so I'll need to pick up the pace if I plan to get to her while she's still alive. We do a short little survival section here, wiping out a force of mercs coming in to kill us before we're able to move on to what is probably this game's single greatest weakness. Excuse the pun, but you're going to want to buckle in, because for the rest of this video, I will be frequently complaining about how awful the vehicle sections are. I mean, it's borderline inexcusable to the point that I was wondering how it ever made it past playtesting. However hard it looks to control, I promise you it felt worse to play. However bad it looks like I'm driving, I'm telling you it would be an incredible challenge in its own right to drive any better yourself. The field of view is too tight, you have to control the vehicle's direction and momentum with only the left stick, which is supposed to be so you can aim your gun with the right stick, but that feels so bad to do and distracts you so much that it's pretty much never an option. Hitting a pebble the wrong way will flip your vehicle, and it feels like whatever you're driving is made out of styrofoam and hope while trying to navigate these environments that seem dedicated to stopping you from driving at all costs. I'll be talking about this more later, don't worry. After multiple attempts at making it through this section, we find Val holed up in a small cabin on the water fending off a horde of mercs trying to put her down. If you're not quick, she can die here, so you have to move fast, grab a sniper rifle, and start providing her cover. The good news is that if we can just thin their numbers enough to give us an opening, we can jump down into the water, grab her and that boat, and get ourselves off this island.
Ow!
Well, that's not good.
Oh, shit.
Hunters here swear by toad venom. Me, I'd force you to drink nerve gas, but my employer's got a soft spot for dumb animals.
Explains hiring practices.
Shut your mouth, bitch!
You're quick with those setups, aren't you, Carver? Bet you didn't see this one coming.
Actually, I kinda did, but why fight?
That time's over, sailor. Evening, Doctor.
Colonel, I was clear. I need Mr. Carver in good health. It looks to me like you indulged in your usual overzealousness.
What the hell is this?
Keep your mouth shut.
Jack, I'm Dr. Krieger. I know you've had a rough day, so I'll keep this brief. I've been following your feud with Colonel Crow here. You proved to be a clever and tenacious thorn in his side. That's why you're still alive.
Hear that, Crow?
I'm a biochemist. I've studied primitive medicine my whole career, searching for a way to roll back the millennia of atrophy and decadence that's weakened humankind. You see, Jackatan's indigenous shamans use their craft to empower their tribe's warriors and hunters.
Okay, hang on one fucking second. What is this shit?
It's taken a long time and many failures, but I've been able to improve on these folk practices. A suitable test subject can access physical abilities that have been lost to humans for thousands of years. You'll feel a little prick. Ah! Process him for observation. In the meantime, Colonel, I suggest you start making some progress in your search for the woman. Mr. Carver turned out to be a lucky find, but I won't tolerate any more costly disruptions.
What the hell was in that shot?
Well, we got captured, tortured, and now injected with something. It's a wonder they didn't just shoot us and get rid of us altogether, given the nuisance we've been to whoever that was on the screen. What exactly has Jack gotten himself into here?
Something's not right. My arm's stronger.
What do I do if he wakes up while you're in there? You don't do nothing. This crate's reinforced steel. He's not getting out.
Huh?
Cut that out in there, you hear me?
I didn't even feel that. Oh God. What's wrong with my hand?
Okay, well, something is very wrong here, but we don't have time to worry about it right now. We're currently who knows where on this island, if this even is that same island, and need to put some distance between us and that truck as soon as we can. As for our next move after that, we'll play that part by ear.
Ah, shit! Turn that fucking thing off!
It seems like Jack's ears are extra sensitive to sound. Must be a side effect of whatever was in that shot they gave us. This is the exact time I would have unlocked dual wielding as an option, because it makes sense now. Also, we can do this. Awesome. Looks like it's sunset, so we must have been out for at least 3 or 4 hours, assuming this is even the same day. The gameplay changes a bit once we get our feral abilities, because our wounds heal shortly after we receive them, and we have a melee that allows us to temporarily move significantly faster to close the distance and claw them to death. It's only usable for a melee attack though, but still very useful. I want this, by the way. I want to find myself lost on an island with superpowers and slowly lose myself to psychosis, tearing apart mercenaries with my bare hands. That's one of the mercs. What in the hell did he do to get his own guys to hang him like this? I don't think the Far Cry series has ever got as edgy as this one did again, to be honest. Oh yeah, and we're back to another vehicle section again, which sucks. Seriously, however bad I'm making these vehicle controls sound, I am telling you that they are worse. At least it looks pretty cool to play through though. I gotta give them props for that. This game actually does look pretty damn cool. Looks like we found a river and a boat too. This should make it easier to put some more distance between us and those psychopaths. Or so you'd think. As it turns out, whatever this operation here is, it's massive. These mercs are all over this island. I'm talking hundreds of well-paid, highly trained mercenaries scattered across this island armed to the teeth with high-grade weapons and equipment. I have to assume this was government subsidized at this point. It's the only thing that makes sense.
Doyle, I'm back on the air. I just broke out of some kind of zoo. This guy Krieger shot me full of lizard juice or something. My arm's gone all fucking weird.
Jack, try to calm down. I heard the traffic on you, and there are some things about that injection you need to know.
Doyle gives us the rundown on the injection we've been given, at least to the best of his knowledge, it seems like. What he tells us is that there's an implant inside our head to make us susceptible to Dr. Krieger's control. Something to make us obey his orders and lose our rationale. Doyle then tells us he can get it out if we can reach him in time, but that we need to hurry before it's too late. Looks like we're double timing it now. If this thing takes control of Jack's brain, then it's game over. We were on this river for quite a bit longer, even getting to use a hovercraft at one point, which is fun. I can appreciate the vehicle variety they tried to give us here, if only any of them controlled well enough to really enjoy them. Eventually, we're able to clear our way to a long stretch of river where it seems like we're away from any merc-inhabited zones.
Carver, it's Val Cortez. I talked to Doyle.
Oh. Why aren't you long gone by now?
I still had work to do here, but the sooner we meet the better. There's something about this place.
Yeah. Gets under your skin.
The river you're on passes through a rainforest. Take it as far to the south as you can and then head inland on foot. I'll find you.
Sounds like they know something about what's going on here. We appear to be on borrowed time, but making our way to Val and then ultimately to Doyle seems like our last chance to retain our own mind before whatever this injection is erases it. Still, there's something strange about this place. More than just the mercs, like something isn't right here. Now, who did that? Someone beat us here and completely annihilated these guys. This isn't the work of some rogue soldier like us. These people were ripped apart by something, and I get the feeling we're about to find out what. The hell are those things? Tiny dinosaurs? Experimental creatures? What exactly am I looking at? This island is a complete hellscape, not somewhere I'd ever want to vacation. At the very least, though, the destructible environment available in this game stayed satisfying to me for pretty much the entire time. So cool. This opens up into an entire arena, by the way, and it's actually pretty good. The burning buildings and desecrated corpses laying around everywhere makes the area feel like a freshly harvested battleground for our new feral powers. So I fall back on my instincts and start carving through the mercs that come pouring in to provide backup to their boys. I imagine their intention was to fight those creatures we killed earlier. I doubt they were ready for what we are. With that done, we're able to make our way deeper into the jungle towards the area where Val said she was hiding out. Where'd the sun go? Man, it got dark quick. Well, here we are. Why Val wanted to meet in the island's swamps is beyond me. The air is heavy and the atmosphere is thick. We're not out of the woods yet. Literally. It's here where something starts happening. Jack mentions how he's being overwhelmed with smells and different scents, and suddenly we can see the residue of each merc's scent being left from their bodies like a trail. Seems like we can track by scent now, like a real predator. This is one of our new feral abilities, and it's very cool in concept, but very useless in execution. Again, if this game's stealth worked even half as well as it clearly wants to, then this kind of power would be so fun to play with, but there just isn't enough of a satisfying stealth loop to make this worth it. So what I'll say is that it makes the all-out combat more fun than it would be without it, since we can find where our enemies are in the dark quite a bit easier this way.
You made good time.
Well, I didn't really stop to kill anybody.
I'm sorry about before.
Which part?
My brief was to extract Doyle by any means. That meant using a cover story and local transport.
Right. And you and Doyle are what? Cops? CIA?
Whatever Krieger's up to out there was bad enough that Doyle risked his cover and his life to get word out.
Whatever he's up to. Val, did you know that I can track by scent now? I'm really hoping your friend has an antidote.
We have a more immediate problem. When Crow grabbed me, he took my pocket PC. Right now there's a specialist trying to decrypt my files. If he succeeds, Doyle's a dead man. And so are you.
What do we have to do?
I have other orders. But you can put these new talents to use. South of here is an old Japanese bunker. The crypto geek has his workshop there under heavy guard. I need you to get the PC back.
Yeah, sure thing. But you're wrong about one thing, Val. Nothing about these abilities is new.
Pocket PC? Hard to look at this game and remember the smartphone didn't exist at the time this came out. We didn't have touchscreens or even the ability to access the internet on a cell phone until several more years after this game had already released. Back then, plenty of futuristic games predicted we would eventually have small computers we carried around with us, but tended to call them PDAs for personal data assistant, or like this game, a pocket PC. Which both of these things did actually exist in the real world at the time, but they were so underpowered that they were little more than a gimmick. Of course, now we just call them phones. Anyway, back to the game, it's hard to see what's going on because it's so dark, but that kind of adds to the immersion since we're in a swamp at night. It also gives us a great excuse to use our new feral ability to track by scent. The level design here is very classic FPS, so it's super linear, which works fine here, but it isn't very common for Far Cry games, especially not now. Once we've carved our way through this swamp, we eventually find the ruins of some old military base, supposedly left over from World War II, and the mercs have set up shop here. Assaulting this fortress is actually pretty fun because it gave me a chance to play with the claymore mechanic. Just like we can create traps with the branches, you can also plant claymore mines using the same trap function, and they're one of the more useful items in the game actually. This is because the AI in Far Cry Instincts is not very good. In fact, the enemy AI is notoriously bad in this game, and might be the worst in any of the Far Cry games. It's not the worst I've ever seen, not by a long shot. I'd say it's still better than 75% of most games from this console generation and before, but it's still pretty bad if you compare it to even the original Far Cry this one was reimagining. The point of that is to say that these claymores are effective because you can plant them anywhere, hide behind a corner, and they will always chase after you no matter what. Sometimes they'll try to flush you out with a grenade, which does work on occasion, but they're pretty inconsistent about it. Once we get through the fortress like the one-man army we're slowly becoming, Doyle gets back in touch with us about the situation.
Carver, I've been eavesdropping on our hacker friend. Unless he's bullshitting, he's making good progress on his decryption efforts. Too good.
Starting to feel the heat a little?
You need to slow him down until you can retrieve the PC. You should kill the power in there.
It's like Jack said, we're all starting to feel the heat. And it kind of feels like we might be in the center of it right now. Shutting down the power is the easy part since the generator isn't far from where we entered. Finding that switch and flipping it is only the start. With the lights off and everyone now on alert, the real task is going to be finding Val's PDA and getting it out of here undamaged. This section is pretty great actually. We have to infiltrate this underground bunker to try and shut down the power, and it offers us up some classic corridor shooting to play with. This game is very well suited for corridor shooting, and this is a great time to give us the shotgun too. The red spinning lights give such an atmosphere to the tense situation we're in, and the claustrophobic environment makes our feral melee feel all the more dangerous. I know Far Cry is known for its massive, wide open spaces and terrain, but I could have honestly used some more levels like this. They do end up being pretty sparse though. Finally, we find the PDA and the hacker who's trying to break into it. He doesn't make it. And now it's time to get out of here and meet back up with Val, which of course is easier said than done. Ah, a room with a turret in it, and a clear arena-like setting for me to get swarmed. Could this be a tower defense section? Alright, screw it, we're starting a new counter. From this point on in the channel, I'm adding every turret or tower defense section I find to their own respective counters on the channel, starting with this one. So before we trigger the event, we can actually take some time to set a few claymores around to help us out before people start flooding the room. Which is good, because this part is actually pretty hard, so I'd recommend doing so. With the mindset, we trigger the event.
Trying to escape in a crashed airplane? You're gonna die in there, dumb fuck.
Do they treat all their guests like this? When I find Crow, I'm gonna kill that guy. Once we fend off a few dozen mercenaries, one of the doors gets blown loose and gives us an escape back into the forest, which is good because I think I've had enough of this swamp. So anywhere would be better than this. Up ahead is an entrance into the island's mines. What were they mining here? I have no idea, but hopefully being down there gets us out of the open and into the dark where we can stay out of sight. Let's just hope there's not as many of them down here as there have been up there.
Doyle, if you can read me at all, where the hell am I?
Can't get a fix on your position right now. No way for me to guide you.
These blows.
Continue through the mine. When you reach the exit, use the zip line to get clear.
A zip line on the other side of this mine shaft. How does Doyle even know that? Either way, we don't have time to play 20 questions with him. Crow and his men know we're down here and are no doubt mobilizing to pursue behind us and cut us off up ahead. The ground constantly shaking does not inspire much confidence in me about our odds of survival if we stay down here very long. Not to mention the horde of mercs and those lizard things running around on the island. I'm sure there's no shortage of them down here either. The level design is pretty interesting actually. There's stretches of tunnel where it's too dark to see and we have to fall back on our feral sense to make out our surroundings and track our enemies by scent. I mentioned earlier how the game is really fun when we get corridor sections, but make no mistake, this isn't really that. I mean, it kind of is, but it also isn't. The levels manage to be very wide, and cover is kind of hard to come by. It's not bad, but if you were expecting this mine level to be an entire mission of claustrophobic corridor shooting, you would be wrong. We're stuck in these tunnels for about 15 minutes until we finally find an elevator out of here, but the generator to call it is off, and we have to turn these valves to refuel it before we can restore power and call the elevator back up. After getting the gas flowing to the generator again, we flip the switch and call our ride out of here, although something tells me we're not out of the mines yet. And yeah, it's taking us further down. I knew it wasn't going to be that easy. At least with the power out down here, we have the advantage. Oh, and a P90. I love this weapon. It's one of my favorite firearm designs to see in games. I'd love to have one in real life too, but I'll settle for this. Not like we need it down here.
You were asking, I'm telling. Now hand me one of those glow sticks so we can light this place up a little.
Glow sticks?
Yeah, glow sticks. They're shaped like sticks, and they glow, you know? So hand one over and let's get some light in here.
You're not going to like this.
Don't tell me you forgot the fucking things.
Maybe. Maybe I didn't forget. I just, didn't actually remember.
You forgot the fucking light sticks? You idiot! Now we have to wait for those jackasses in the overalls to fix the generator, or we're never gonna see anything down here.
It was an honest mistake, okay?
Just shut up and keep searching.
Fine.
Grenade! Move!
There's a few little dialogue interactions like this across the game, and they always felt both funny and believable to this kind of situation. Bothering to put so many individual dialogue bits across the game can really make the difference when it comes to showing how much the developers care about the world they're dropping you into. From here, the combat drops off a little bit as the platforming becomes a little bit more prevalent. These mines have basically opened up into a series of natural caverns inside of the island itself, with the mine shafts serving more as a way to connect the caves than anything. Eventually, we end up finding a spiral path that's been carved into this cave, but it's blocked by a massive boulder, and there's dozens of those lizard things dropping down trying to kill us. If we could just figure out a way to get past, there's a C4 charge laying less than 10 feet away. What was the point of this? I guess to mix up gameplay a little bit, but it really just feels like a waste of time. We walk 10 feet, grab the charge, place it, and wait 15 seconds till it blows. Either way, climbing up, we can finally hear the noises of the jungle again. We've almost made it out of here. The zipline is just up ahead past another pointless arena section that makes us balance across this plank of wood. Killing another several dozen mercs and fighting our way to the zipline, we can say goodbye to these damn mines and get back into the sunshine again.
Carver, answer me if you can.
Oh yeah, that exit was just like you described it.
Save it for later. Crow's jarheads kept busy while you were playing Tunnel Rat.
Meaning?
They've modified a microwave tower about a click southwest of you. They bring it online and bypass the signal to mask your implant device. That would be bad. Find a vehicle and follow the river again until you reach the tower.
Well, we're back outside again, and it's daytime. Looks like early morning. Were we in those swamps and mines for that long? This is probably the most impressive level in the entire game from a size and technical standpoint. The whole level is enormous, but still pretty linear. There's a variety of different ways you can go about progressing, but you pretty much have to follow this river the whole way through. You can try to take a boat and stay on the water, which I don't recommend, or you can actually spend the majority of the level fighting across the cliffs, which is actually really fun because of the zip lines and scaffolding you can use to navigate. Doing this will probably extend what is a 40-minute mission by about an extra 10 or so minutes. I chose to just fly the hang glider across the majority of the river because the driving in this game sucks, and we almost never get to use the hang gliders in this game. These are fun to use though. I'm pretty sure this is the largest scale map we'll see in the game due sheerly to how tall these cliffs are. The levels get pretty tall later on, but this particular level is an impressive display for the Crytek engine in my opinion, given that this was built to run on the original Xbox. Kinda feels a little cheap to skip so much of the level by just gliding over it though. When we eventually crash land the hang glider into this natural overhang is when the mission really gets interesting. My plan was to get that other glider and continue to fly over the opposition, but it didn't work out that way, so we'll be fighting our way forward. That's when my screen starts flashing and something starts happening to Jack.
What? Fuck!
Clearly something is wrong because Jack's vision is fading in and out and his hearing is being scrambled by some kind of noises. This must be the result of that implant Doyle was trying to tell us about.
Doyle! Doyle, do you read me? Something bad's happening, man. Something...
Jack is not in good spirits right now. Whatever is doing this has to be at the top of that station. With seemingly our brain on the line, we climb this ladder, kill all of these enemies, and start punching the terminal on whatever the hell this radio is. Ah, that's better. I don't remember doing all that to those guys, but, well, stranger things have happened since we got here, so whatever. With that tower out of commission, we can start trying to think a little straighter and consider what our options are here. Not sure how big this island is, but it seems to go on forever, and now we don't have a vehicle, so securing that is a great place to start. At least I thought so until something started happening. We're moving faster now, a lot faster, and look at that jump I just pulled off. This is called feral speed, and it allows us to run twice as fast as we normally could, not to mention jump twice as high. Jack is becoming something more than human at this point, like an animal. Nah, none of that. Although you can rest assured that 12-year-old me was jamming that song when I was playing this game back then. This speed carries us through a few valleys until we wind up back at another facet of the river that runs through this place. Calming down our adrenaline, I grab my sniper rifle and fire off a few shots to thin the enemy numbers before making my way down. I kind of feel like this game has an indescribable, ugly, beautiful look to it. I mean, the water is stunning, the foliage looks dense and detailed, it's all pretty gorgeous, but there's an odd quality to everything that makes it feel kind of ugly. No idea how to describe it, but I know I would adore seeing this game ported to PC so I could see it fleshed out to its full potential. There's another old derelict military bunker up ahead, so of course there's a horde of mercs holed up here as well. Climbing up to the roof and look, another hang glider. Well, now they're just making it too easy, and they even left me a rocket launcher. Can't say no to that. At this point, I am convinced that this operation is being funded by the United States government in some capacity. Doyle's presence here as a... what is he exactly? I'm not sure we figured that out yet. CIA, I'm guessing? Either way, his being here is likely the result of one US wing investigating the actions of another, something which happens a surprisingly frequent amount in reality as well. Over the comms, Doyle told us that there's a bio-research facility up ahead, so we must be getting close to whatever they're really trying to accomplish on this island. May as well take out that helicopter while we've got the tools to do it. Alright, let's get moving. It's another driving section, and it's once again the bane of this game's fun factor. Fortunately, this one lasts less than 15 seconds before we wind up in some kind of observatory. What the hell are they doing here? This isn't some leftover building from World War II, this was built here recently. Up ahead, there's more scaffolding, and all of this was definitely put up within the last few years. What the hell is going on here? They're researching something. Is it those crazy lizards we found earlier? Did we wind up at Jurassic Park and didn't realize it? Either way, this elevator is taking us deeper into whatever this facility is, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. I think we may have just figured out what they're doing here, and I am now even more confident that this is indeed being funded by some kind of major world power government in some capacity. Who else could or would even fund this kind of bio-research into genetic alterations? Of course, not to my surprise at all, we end up in an arena where we have to kill this thing. It's kind of like a mini boss battle, and it's not too difficult if you just dodge the thing's attacks and pay relative attention to where it is in relation to the objects it might throw at you. The real difficulty here comes from the fact that this thing is an absolute bullet sponge. I'm actually not even sure you can kill it with bullets alone. Maybe they weaken it, but if they do, I couldn't really tell. At some point, I just started trying to tear it apart until it eventually worked.
Hey, Doyle. I bet you have a really great reason why you didn't tell me about the apeshit circus freak with the giant fucking arm.
Actually, yes. Let me get that gate for you.
Maybe that was one of the trial experiments for what was supposed to be what we are now? Either way, we gotta keep moving. This isn't the time or place to stop for a break. How is it already sunset again? Have we been walking for nearly 12 hours at this point? Just how big is this island, and at what point does it become its own continent? Seriously. Ah, some new toys. Looks like a modified M16 and a Desert Eagle. I'll hold on to these. Thanks, fellas. And up ahead is yet another bunker entrance surrounded by guards for me to test them out on. A surprising amount of the weapons in this game are equipped with suppressors, which I find odd both from an in-game and meta perspective. Why would these mercs be worried about the noise caused by some weapons, but then fire off rockets and 50 caliber machine guns from helicopters and jeeps randomly like they're paid by the bullet? Metatextually, it's not like the suppressors work. Shooting your enemies with a suppressed weapon, in my experience, alerted the other guards even if you weren't in sight, so there's really not much point to this. At the very least, you can tell this installation is new, definitely not left over from prior inhabitants. Also, we're back to some real corridor shooting, and yeah, I was loving it. Every time they sound the alarm, it hurts Jack's ears because of his enhanced hearing, and it also slowly chips away at your health too, so you can't just ignore them. You have to either get away or shut it off, and in close quarters like this, getting away isn't an option. At least we seem to be getting to the bottom of whatever is going on here. They're clearly working on some kind of genetic human alteration, and we have become one of several test subjects. Also, something tells me they weren't expecting our dose to take to us as well as it very clearly has. Seems we're an experiment gone bad, or at least bad for them.
At injection plus 20 hours, the subject began to suffer petit mal seizures and a complete psychotic break.
Was there anything indicated in the pre-screen?
No. Prior to evolution, the subject was a healthy baseline 22-year-old, non-smoker, negative drugs, non-blood work.
Right. Well, good report. Use it now to prep for post-mortem.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Well, that's concerning. If those things are anything like me, then we might be in trouble here. Let's try not to make it our problem and prioritize getting off this island.
Who?
Guess we didn't need to worry about you finding the place.
We?
Carver Doyle. Doyle Carver. You don't look happy to see me, Jack. I wanted to be here for you. Figured I owed you that.
You owe me a boat.
Val, make sure Dr. Radich is ready to earn his retainer. I'll get our patient prepped. The clock's ticking, Carver. You better get on the table. Listen, when we're done here, there's not going to be much time for recovery. You and Val will head down the hall to the Pelagics lab, then swim out of the facility.
Wait a minute, you're not coming with us?
I'm still on the job. I'm giving you an anesthetic. It's going to be one hell of a dose, but it shouldn't put you under.
Wait, what about... what...
Well, we're being operated on again. At least it'll get that chip out of our brain.
I have to move your gear, Skipper. Not sterile.
This is a huge opportunity for you. That's worth a little risk, isn't it?
Just make sure the funds are in my account.
Where are you, my little silicon friend?
Subclavian junction, embedded 0.04 millimeters into the endothelium.
Nice work, Doctor. Let's get it out. Jack, I have to warn you. This implant's been regulating the pace of your evolution. Removing it may have some unpredictable effects.
Do your worst.
Here goes nothing.
Regulating our revolution?
Oh, God. What did I do?
That's the second time this has happened. Looks like we ripped everyone in this room to pieces. I have dreams like this sometimes. Wait, hey, the alarm isn't hurting us anymore. It's blaring, but we seem to be immune. Maybe Jack's body underwent an adaptation after getting that implant removed. That should make getting out of here a little easier. But still, how do we get out of here? Maybe this leads somewhere? Since we got on this island, Jack has had 3 days of a very bad tropical vacation. Once we get out of that facility and back onto the island, we find a horde of these things they were making down there. Must have been former mercs or something, because they were clearly human once, although they are not as strong as us, nor do they have our abilities. Maybe they're not as far along in their process, or maybe we just took to the serum better. This level is also really long, by the way, like over an hour from start to finish, easy. Although the majority of it after we get out of that facility is just clearing our way through both the mercenaries and these mutants.
Total mutant annihilation.
Interestingly enough, they seem to be killing each other. Those mutants must not have had their implants put in yet, or something. Also, we can rip the mounted 50 caliber machine gun turrets off their stands and carry them around now, which is great. We fall into this arena sort of area where our old pal Crow shows up and starts firing rockets at us while hordes of these mutants start bursting free from these containers, all the while he taunts us repeatedly from the safety of his balcony up there.
Stand and fight if you think you can take it.
This isn't really a boss battle, but I would call it a boss encounter, if that makes sense. Once Crow accidentally gives us a way up to him, he makes a run for it and gets away from us in his chopper with enough haste to suggest that he was not confident he would win in a 1v1. Whatever, we'll deal with him later. Val is waiting for us just up ahead at the entrance to a bunker.
But I did everything you people demanded.
That all went out the window when you tried to play us.
This doesn't concern your agency. It's my insurance.
Spare me, Radich.
I'll have nothing to bargain with. I'm dead!
I know.
What's going on, Val?
He was trying to run with samples of Krieger's serum. Black market. Nearly got the drop on me.
You disappeared. Where did Doyle go?
Look, right now the only thing that matters is us getting out of here. If you come with me to the security office, I have a fighting chance of finding Doyle. This has to be unlocked from the main ops room. I think I can squeeze into the window above the door.
Get on with it.
Crow's reinforcements are going to be here any second. It's going to take a few minutes for me to get to the control room and open this.
That's fine. I'll stick around and entertain the troops.
Oh boy, here we go. Another tower defense section. And this one is actually really hard too. I died several times trying to complete it. They pour into the area from all angles, and you have such limited room to maneuver around that it makes it feel almost unfair given they keep you from leaving this small enclosure with invisible walls, and there isn't much cover to speak of. Eventually, after several tries, I do manage to get a flow going and kill off all these guys. Shortly after that, the gate opens behind us, and we head back in to find Val in the lab.
I'd hoped to talk to you before, Jack. I'm sorry things escalated.
Krieger? You should have thought of that before you put that junk in me.
I just help you tap into something that's always been there. A means to survive. But if you prefer, I'm willing to reverse the process.
What do you want?
Crow has gone wrong. He's stolen restricted materials. He's moving to an island under his direct control. You must eliminate his threat, or he'll never stop hunting you. Do this, and I can cure you.
Krieger, you don't think I know a bait and switch when I hear it? You're getting sloppy. Go to hell.
Wait, Jack, don't do this. Let me.
It looks like Crow's on his way to the helipad.
I need you to feed me intel. Whatever happens, hold this room. I'm going for Crow and Doyle.
You know, I respect the writers for not going with the cliche plot point of Jack trying to reverse his symptoms and just telling Krieger to go to hell instead. What a great detail, both to his character and the story. I love this, the main protagonist being offered a conditional cure and just outright refusing. These earlier Far Cry games have their flaws, but man, I love them. Too bad right after that we're subjugated to one of those flaws in this vehicle section. With as many of these as there are littered across the game's runtime, I cannot believe they are as fundamentally unfun to play as they are. Whatever, they suck and we make it to the end where we have to assault this beach fortress like D-Day or something. Seriously, they were clearly expecting us given the reputation we must have earned ourselves these past few days on this island. Luckily, we just speed run past them and grab this mortar launcher that we then use to blow that helicopter out of the sky and turn the rest of the enemies around into a fun mist of red regret. Crow has Doyle, and he's apparently about to leave this island to stage a coup on Krieger's primary research island a few miles from the one we've been stuck on. We've got to get Doyle back and make Crow pay. Oh, there he goes. Dang, what is that thing made of? Plot armor? Well, so much for stopping him before he gets away, but at least we know where he's going. So we'll just have to kill everyone else at this dock and requisition a boat for ourselves so we can go find Krieger's main island. This jet ski should do just fine. Once we get over there, we'll find Crow and tear him apart. Then we can deal with Krieger and Doyle.
Carver, you're heading into no man's land now. Crow's made sure that the terrain on your side of his security wall is hostile enough to deter any conventional attack.
I don't think this qualifies.
Probably not, but you're not getting through the main gate without disabling his defenses. You'll need to take out the power substation on your side. Sounds like something you would do with a bomb. Politely ask the mercs if they have one.
Val calls in to tell us there's a main gate between us and Krieger's research facility, and that before we can do anything else, we'll have to take out the power substation on our side of the island. If there's anything we've learned about these mercenaries, it's that they keep no shortage of bombs on this island. See? The atmosphere of this whole chapter is thick with dread. The sun itself blotted out by black clouds above, with rain crashing down around us, drenching the rusted metal and bloody corpses we see laid bare across the island. This could be me being nostalgic or something, but I really feel like games used to have more atmosphere back in the day. Even with these dated graphics, this level seems twice as tense as anything I ever saw in later Far Cry games. There seems to be dozens of these mutants around too, half of them with bomb vests strapped on and the other half armed with automatic machine guns itching to shoot anything that isn't one of them. Before too long, however, our senses progress again, this time allowing us to see these creatures in the dark outlined by their blood.
Fuck! That was close. So you guys are warm-blooded after all.
This is more useful than you think, because despite how cool I think this atmosphere is, the darkness does actually make it pretty hard to see where your enemies are. So as a predator, we must adapt. Up ahead, we are finally able to find the power substation, which means that we need to borrow a few C4 charges and blow this thing up. Well, that should make their lives a bit more difficult. That's only the start though. Crow has sectioned off a massive portion of this island, and he's got a small army waiting for us, not to mention who knows where Doyle is, or if he's even still alive. The rest of this mission is just a long trek through these swamps as we fight the hordes of mutants Krieger has been testing on. This does, in fact, include more of those weird abominations like we encountered before, and by more, I mean more than one at once. I had to get pretty adept at taking these things down because the fact is, they're damn near bulletproof, and you have to fight several of them across this level. The trick is to rely more on your melee than on your firearms. I do actually really like this level. It's a lot more simple and straightforward than most of the other missions. Although that said, there's no unique or memorable set pieces here either beyond the atmosphere of the swamp setting. There's a few minor things like blowing up the power substation and then a lengthy section where we have to ride a moving wooden raft across a river while taking enemies out on all sides of us. This scene actually had the potential to be pretty cool, I think, but it was held back by bad enemy AI, no music, and an overall uninteresting execution of this concept. You're better off abandoning the thing and swimming instead, which is exactly what I did. The level ends on a mini boss fight where we take on 2 more of these abomination mutants by ourselves, and like I said earlier, the trick is to rely on your melee more than anything because your bullets basically do not hurt them. With those things dead and out of our way, we finally find the road that'll take us out of the swamp and deeper into the island.
New development. Someone or something is jamming tactical radio traffic in Crow's territory.
Is that gonna be a problem?
Sounds like it. Finish loading out your gear. Your first task when you get outside is to get into a hard communications room so we'll be able to talk.
So we need to find a communications room and open up comms for Val. We're getting closer. Looks like the rain's letting up, but it's hard to tell where we even are right now since everything looks the same on this damn island. Well, almost the same. Looks like the other mutants beat us to the punch here and tore these mercs apart, but there's another handful of them up there still. We'll have to finish what our mutant friends didn't and take these guys out. I do a little bit of predator stalking here as I get the lay of the land before we finally go in for the kills. Once I'm able to clear this camp of mercs, we spot a radio set on a table we can use to open up communications with Val again.
Val, you copy? Is this line working?
Loud and clear. I was able to piece together Crow's flight path. Apparently he took Doyle to some kind of abandoned helm.
I doubt he's treating malaria cases.
It could mean any number of things. All disasters. Carver, get to that hospital right away. I know you want to take down Crow, but saving Doyle may be even more critical.
Well, that's not good. Looks like we've got a bit of a detour on our quest for vengeance against Crow. Doyle seems to have gotten himself into some trouble at a nearby abandoned hospital. Before we can do anything else, we'll need to go rescue the guy. Has he even told us who he is yet? I guess he's still our best chance of getting off this island, so we do need him alive. But then we're finding Crow and killing him. It's personal now. The Desert Eagle is pretty satisfying to use in this game too. Unfortunately, they don't give it to us very often, but when we do get it, I love it, and dual wielding 2 of them is even better. Something I noticed about this level is how it looks less tropical than a lot of the earlier ones. Less like a jungle and more like a proper forest, which is interesting. Makes me feel like this island must be a lot bigger than the other one for this to be the case. There's also a lot more proper buildings littered around this island than the last one. Like full 2-story buildings, massive electric fences, and even water towers. Kinda has me wondering why Crow had so many of his men spread out around that last island like he did with so little even going on over there. Looks like Crow's giving his boys some upgrades, but as expected, it still won't be enough. Judging by the corpse already on the ground over here, it looks like Doyle might have done some work before we got here. Well, that or it was some of Krieger's mutants. Either way, we're on borrowed time now to find Doyle before someone or something else finds him first. There's quite a lengthy bit of level here where we just slowly work our way through a linear path of jungle towards Doyle's location, and there's not much worth noting overall. Just a little jungle playground for us to use our powers and enjoy the game's combat, which I'm fine with. At this point, we're pretty powered up and used to how our abilities work within the context of the gameplay, so this is pretty welcome and way better than a vehicle section. At the other end of a long valley, we find some kind of greenhouse where someone was growing plants before all hell started breaking loose here between Crow and Krieger. Doesn't look like Doyle's here though, so we should press on. Oh great, one of these things again. Not a problem, I know how to deal with you guys now. Taking these things down with such ease after figuring out their weakness really reinforces this feeling the game gives you of being the apex predator on an island full of other predatory creatures. I feel like this had to be intentional, but there is this overwhelming feeling of predator versus prey throughout the whole game. When the story starts, we're the prey. The player is given chances to stalk enemies and set traps, but ultimately, we're outmatched, vulnerable, and being actively hunted by Crow's mercenaries across the island. After we're given the serum, however, we slowly start to feel the scales rebalance as our power becomes overwhelming to the mercenaries. The mission objectives begin to align with this as well. When this all kicked off, we were on the run, just trying to survive and escape the island. Over the few days this game takes place, however, our objectives start to orient around pursuing items and destroying areas until now, we're actively hunting Crow and Krieger to kill them. It's the lived experience of evolving from prey to predator both narratively and mechanically. It's just brilliant, and I love it. Up ahead, we see the hospital we've been looking for, and it's heavily fortified with over a dozen of Crow's best men. These aren't the regular mercs we've been fighting the whole game so far. These guys are geared up with body armor and carrying full auto M16s equipped with underbarrel grenade launchers. Still, we're able to pick them off with our enhanced abilities and continue into the building where things have clearly gotten out of hand recently. Maybe Doyle's tougher than we gave him credit for. Again, some brilliantly palpable atmosphere from the designers is on display.
Expected to find you in a bamboo cage.
Crow was in too big a hurry for the usual niceties. I tried to warn him about the dangers of overdosing.
He took the serum?
4 times what you got, and without an implant to regulate its effects. He's already on his way to Krieger's to tear out the old man's throat.
No way to get through to Val.
We don't have to. Get me to the lot behind the hospital. I got a cab waiting.
Oh great, we're on escort duty now. Just what I always wanted. Doyle said Crow took the same serum that did this to us, but took 4 times as much as we did. So either he's overdosing right now, or he's about to be 4 times more of a threat than he would have been otherwise. Either way, he must have seen what we've been capable of doing since he tested the serum out on us and wanted a little taste of that for himself. Our one advantage is that we've had the last 3 days to evolve our abilities, and he just got his. We kill a handful of Crow's remaining mercs in the area while defending Doyle from harm and clear the landing zone. Doyle says he knows how to fly that helicopter, so right now, that's our best chance of getting to both Krieger and Crow.
Do we head straight to Krieger's?
Normally, yes, but his villa's on the slopes of an active volcano. At the moment, the ash cloud is making it impossible to fly in.
A volcano? Did he learn that in supervillain school or something?
Krieger sometimes gets sloppy on critical details, which is why we'll be able to get to him on foot through the emergency bunker, assuming Crow didn't beat us to it.
Yeah, assuming he didn't.
No. These spec war shitheads have royally fucked the airwaves around here.
We've been lit up by a designated. Hang on! We've got incoming!
Hang on to what?
This thing flies like a brick! Right!
Well, if Doyle survived that somehow, then something tells me he might not be in very good condition right now. Oh, yeah, right, the volcano. Krieger's explosive-strapped mutants are basically waging a war on what's left of Crow's mercs on the beachhead leading to his lab. I think the thing I'm most surprised by about all of this is the sheer number of soldiers on Crow's payroll. Or, I'm assuming Crow's payroll? I'm not actually sure what the power structure of all of this is now. It's kind of gotten blurry, what with the coup and all. Either way, this operation has managed to foot the bill for a small army of, I'm guessing something like 1,500 mercenaries from across the globe, probably to maintain plausible deniability for whatever government is actually putting up the capital to fund this whole thing. The rest of this level will see us fighting our way across what is essentially a war zone now, as Crow's mercs and Krieger's mutants battle it out to see who's left standing at the end. The environment around us is downright bleak. Charred, rocky terrain accented by hard concrete and steel dug into the ground. Dead or dying trees litter the area as a grim reminder of what this place may have looked like at one time before all of this started happening. Before too long, we end up crawling through a pipe, taking us deeper into the island, where we find a river of lava running through this island like the very serum that now flows through our own veins. I think it's safe to say that the situation is escalating, and we'll be reaching our climax very soon. We place a charge on these downed rocks to blow open a path forward, and up ahead is a small building that we have to clear out before finding a zipline to take us across this volcanic river. I'm honestly feeling this. I'd call this a very energetic and climactic finale to this story so far. So all of this epic material must of course be balanced out by the worst vehicle section of the whole game. I'm not even exaggerating either. This whole part is painfully awful. I had to replay it several times despite the fact that you only have to drive up a hill because they programmed in this Jeep to explode in front of you by mortar fire. And that mortar can repeatedly blow you up with damn near pinpoint accuracy if you slow down even for a second. It's so bad, in fact, that I eventually ended up just ditching the provided vehicle and playing this whole segment on foot. That actually ended up being faster and easier than trying to use the ATV they clearly intended for the player to use. Finally, we make it up the hill and find the entrance to Krieger's lab just up ahead, where a small skirmish appears to be occurring. You can choose to attack right away and take advantage of the fact that both sides are distracted, or wait it out and let them kill each other with you only handling whoever is left standing. It's your call, but I opted to attack up front and try to get them as they're distracted. Once at the top of the hill, reinforcements for the mercs arrive, but we make short work of them with this mortar launcher. With that done, let's get in there, find those two feuding bastards, and put a definitive end to this whole thing.
I'm fucking sick of this place.
I'm a sick fuck. He's sick. Needs to be called to a pack. No, he's an alpha. Just like us. Maybe stronger. Let's give him a shot.
Well, that was weird. Apparently these mutants are different. They called themselves alphas, and then they called us one too. Clearly, we were the superior alpha of the group, making such short work of them, but still, odd. I guess that means it's time for us to set up and sell an exploitive online course then. Heading a bit further into this facility, we find a horde of these alpha mutants waiting for us, and these aren't anything like the ones we've been seeing outside. They're armed and capable of critical thought. It's like fighting mercs with faster reflexes and thicker skin, as in bullet resistant apparently, because these guys can sponge several more rounds than our previous enemies. Guess these were the successful outcomes of all this experimentation. Is that what this has all been about? Bio-research for superhuman soldiers?
It seems like a dead end. And there's more bad news.
I know about the chopper crash, but unless you saw it inside, wouldn't count to my lab just yet. Listen, the special ops units are cutting your losses. I have a chance to disable the jamming equipment, but I'll need to leave my post. Hang on a second. There you go. You should have a clear path to Krieger's villa. Good luck, Jack.
Well, it looks like Val pulled her weight after all. Opening the elevator, we're able to ride it straight up to Krieger's penthouse, and unsurprisingly, he's got a horde of his best super soldiers up there armed with LMGs guarding him. This is it. We clear this floor and we can finally end this for good. The sunset view outside makes for a breathtaking backdrop as we fight for our life against foes that are faster, stronger, and more dangerous than anything we faced up until this point. I actually feel like the simplicity of this final layout has a unique beauty to it. This is the only time in the game we see such a regular lived-in area with luxuries like books, kitchen appliances, paintings, and even a piano. No, really, think about it. We've spent so much time in a primal haze that most players might not even realize that this is like entering a different world at this point. Krieger has been up here living the life with a high-rise view while we've killed our way through swamps, mines, and an ashen wasteland. There's a subtle hint of brilliance to this, I think. But here, now, finally, I think it's past time we put an end to this for good.
You've exhibited startling lapses in judgment, Jack. Coming here like this, seeking what? Violence against the only person capable of helping you?
Can't reason with a rabid dog, Doc.
So much for going rogue, Uncle.
Oh, I'll admit the Colonel and I have had our share of differences. But as soon as I saw what he'd accomplished with the process, it was clear that we should let bygones.
Alright, whatever works for you, Krieger. Having both of you here just saves me a lot of legwork.
Stand and fight if you think you can take it.
Finally, this is what we've been fighting for since we first set foot on this damned island. This bastard blew up our boat, tortured us, and then injected us with a life-altering virus like a guinea pig. And now we can finally get some much-needed payback and put this son of a bitch in the ground. After a hard-fought boss battle, that is. And I do mean hard-fought. This fight sees a pretty intense difficulty spike, and took me the most replays of any mission. Fighting around Crow's downed chopper in the center arena as mutants pour in around us and he fires off 50 caliber shots at us is actually about as intense as it sounds. And when he jumps down to fight us face to face, it becomes even harder because he's fast, like really fast. As fast as us, which is one of the only times we actually have to reckon with what we've looked like to all of the people we've killed so far. Two predators fighting it out beneath a bleeding sun to see who stands last. Of course, we all know how this plays out. Crow drops down to try his hand at a one-on-one and quickly sees he never really stood a chance. That was for my boat, asshole. Now there's just one last loose end to tie up and nothing left to stop us.
Now. Kill him now.
You're screwed. You want to have a Mexican standoff? How long before the mountain kills us all anyway?
He's hurt and he's alone. You can take him.
Hurt? Maybe. But he's got the hate.
He killed Crow. He took away your leader. You owe him vengeance.
Killed Crow. That's true.
Uh-oh.
You Alpha now. Stronger than Crow.
Stronger than you?
Alright, sure. Why not?
You always been such a drama junkie?
You owe me a damn boat.
I'm sure the taxpayers will be happy to pay for one out of the national parks budget.
Oh, I think we can do better than that.
That's Far Cry Instincts. So far as the narrative goes, I think it's got its own strengths and weaknesses, but for the story the team was hoping to tell here, I would say they did very well. Yeah, sure, I found Krieger to be a fairly hollow villain overall, with a lamentable lack of motivation or world building, and although I think Crow was handled a bit better as they made him a bit more antagonistic to you, he could have used some additional character building as well. The whole game is very much a power fantasy, and I think it executes that fantasy very well. You're stranded on an island and fight to survive alone in the wilderness for a while as you try and escape before being captured and forcibly injected with a serum that turns you into a super soldier-like being. With your newfound powers, you kill your way across a variety of tropical landscapes before finding the men who did it to you and killing them too. I mean, I kinda love everything about this game, except the driving mechanics, of course. Yeah, it had its frustrating issues, but the core concept here is just so much fun to me. The gameplay itself could use some refining, of course, but what we have here is more than palatable enough to justify a playthrough or two. Hell, even after beating it, I wanted to jump back in and play more of it. So I guess it's a good thing that the story's not over yet then, huh? A year after Far Cry Instincts launched, a soft sequel/expansion was quickly ushered out called Far Cry Instincts Evolution. And although this follow-up would do very little to change or improve on the formula of its predecessor, it would go out of its way to escalate the narrative and deliver a satisfying conclusion to the Far Cry Instincts story arc.
Damn it, wake up! Get in back and fire that gun. Move it, or they'll be scraping our asses out of here with a spatula.
Well, we're back into it, and this is looking all too familiar already. On the gun of a jeep pursued by enemies spitting out bullets in a tropical environment. Are we on another island? What the hell is happening? Whatever we did, these people want us dead, and they want it badly. It's like chaos follows Jack around or something. Starting your game off with an action-heavy set piece is always a smart way to go, even if it is a relatively bland turret section. Speaking of which, we may as well start tracking these too. There weren't any in the base Instincts campaign, but Evolution has decided it's going to break the mold apparently.
How the hell did I end up here?
I'll have the usual.
Buy a girl a drink?
Well, if you want actual alcohol in it, I may have to knock over a liquor store.
You'd do that for me?
Only if you'll drive the getaway car.
Honey, I'll drive whatever you want.
Oh, so that's how it is.
I need help with something.
Something dirty?
Word is you're good with weapons. Specifically at getting them around the law. I've got a plane full of cargo and a buyer waiting for delivery. I need an expediter. No heavy lifting. Enough cash to get you your new boat, plus some gas to go in it.
Why didn't you just ask me in the bar?
Are you complaining?
Well, not if we can go again.
Alright, who wrote this?
Don't get greedy on me, Carver.
Is that a no, Kate?
Are you in?
Yeah.
Then it's not a no.
It was paradise found, if you ignored all the heavily armed pirates.
Heavily armed pirates? Where exactly are we?
How you doing, buddy?
In case they frisk me.
Take a picture. It'll last longer.
Who is this?
Nobody. Farang Ba. I'm Cade.
Governor Saturno.
He's here to make sure the Gadir government gets its piece of our deal.
Shall we go inside and finish this?
Stay here and help unload the plane.
I thought you said there'd be no heavy lifting. Terrific.
Help me with this.
Sorry, not in my contract.
Stupid jerk.
The rebels are attacking!
There they are!
Get the gun!
Oh, alright, here we go, finally. This is looking pretty familiar too. These aren't mercs though. Looks like we're fighting pirates this time. Or rebels? What the hell are we doing mixed up with pirate rebels? What has this woman gotten us into?
Why does this always happen to me?
Probably because you're thinking with the wrong head, Jack. Calling back on our old instincts from Krieger's Island, we're able to get back into the swing of taking lives pretty quickly, and it doesn't hurt that these guys seem less organized than Crow's mercs were. Still, this wasn't part of the plan, and I certainly didn't hear Jack sign up for this when he was getting played back at that bar. Speaking of which, where did she go? In that building with those two guys? We should probably get in there and make her tell us what the hell she's gotten us into now. Am I interrupting something?
I thought you'd never get here.
Who the hell was that?
That's mine, Carver.
Only half.
Half? Your deal was a quarter.
Yeah, well, my fee just went up.
You have to get out of here. They know me, but you're a stranger. They'll think you're the killer. There's an observation post on the other side of the island. Meet me there and stay out of sight.
You get the cash when we get off the island.
Yeah, getting off the island sounds good. Hopefully before we get captured and injected with some kind of mystery formula this time. I do like how this game has wasted no time explaining or recapping past events. They just throw you right into this new story like, yeah, we know you want to kill more people with your powers, so here you go. And there are an awful lot of pirates between us and that observation tower, that's for damn sure. I also like how we don't have to re-earn our powers or anything. We're still the same beast we were before, and if anything, they try to make it easier for us to use our powers even more than last time thanks to a new mechanic introduced here in the form of these adrenaline plants. By grabbing these white flowers, you can instantly restore your stamina, which allows you to use your powers more often and with less regard for consequence since they're very common around the island.
We're bringing the woman into the last island. Let the boat move. Keep sharp. That bastard killer might try and rescue her.
Getting through those boats is gonna be impossible. Unless, of course, Might cause some mayhem on those little islands first.
Show yourself!
Cause some mayhem? I think we can figure something out. Now is where the game finally opens up again and lets us off the leash, and I think it's fair to say that the rest of this next level is the largest and most open-ended level we see across both games, making it the closest to the Far Cry formula we all know now. Our objective is to travel around a series of islands and find some things to blow up that will cause enough chaos for us to slip past the gate onto the main island. Everything here feels great too. I'm not really sure if they updated or tuned any of the mechanics between the main game and this one, but it did feel smoother to play for me. Although it's possible that I was just familiar enough with the game by this point that it felt more natural. After we clear through this little area, we find a jet ski that we can use to navigate our way to one of the nearby islands. There's a few of them, and although none of them are massive, they're still very impressive for a game that was running on the original Xbox. Seriously, great work from the developers. They really stepped their game up. I'm pretty sure there's an expected sequence for you to accomplish these objectives, but it's optional, and I wandered around quite a bit, so the order you complete them in and the path you take to do so can vary quite a bit. I liked this a lot. It actually feels like there's a reason to use the binoculars and try to plan your next move. Later Far Cry games would lean on this idea much heavier than this, since this is really only a thing for this one level, but I appreciate their attempt at delivering the experience anyway. The first of the chaos-causing moves we make is to find this small pirate encampment and blow up all of their boats. Because I went around to the far side of the island, I am able to come up behind them and get the drop on their lookouts. The rest is just paperwork. We blow up a few more boats here to put a dent in this operation before raising the gate and quickly making ourselves scarce to find something else to blow up. This little bit of exploration around these small islands really is the closest the Instincts games ever come to feeling like a real Far Cry game. The fact that you can do them in whatever order you want is really nice too, although I think I may have done them out of the intended default order because only one of the 3 objectives comes with a scripted cutscene event, and I completed that one second even though I thought it was intended to be completed last. Coming up on a radio tower, I find all of the guards here have already been slaughtered. It looks like I've already been here, except I know that I haven't, so someone or something else must have done this. This wasn't any normal killing either. Whoever did this brutalized these guys. Either way, they left some C4 behind, and that's all we needed, so let's find somewhere fun to plant it. I make my way over onto the roof of this building looking for something special to pair with my C4 when I come across the people responsible for the slaughter we just found.
I've been waiting for you.
Oh hey, it's that guy again.
What is it? Some kind of pirate killing holiday?
You are caught up in something you cannot understand.
Story of my life.
It couldn't be simpler. We will wipe the land clean of this filth. Build it back up in our image through blood and fire.
You should definitely put that on the brochure.
I see you've been touched. You have the power. Because of that, I will not kill you. But do not mistake my honor for weakness. If you interfere, if you come to the mainland, I will tear you to shreds. But only after you watch me feed your pretty little girlfriend to my men.
She's pretty tough. She might break their teeth.
Not if we cook her first.
Oh, he's quite the pleasant individual. Either way, it seems like he's not interested in picking a fight with us, at least not yet. So our objectives are still the same, and there happens to be some crates full of explosives just sitting here right next to a conveniently placed zip line, so let's go ahead and just blow it all up. I stick the C4 on the crate, slide down the zipline, and wait to watch the fireworks. After this, it's back on another jet ski and around to another of the smaller islands. See, that larger island over there is locked off by an enormous metal gate that we need them to open from the inside, so we have to convince the pirates that their boys out here need reinforcements, which we'll do by finding their fields and setting them all on fire. That's right, this game walked so Far Cry 3 could run with this concept years later. This is a neat scene too. I've always loved how Far Cry games handled their fire mechanics, although dubstep wasn't a thing yet. Once we burn all of their drugs down, at least I think those were going to be drugs, and hit them sufficiently hard enough in their wallets, the gate to the main island finally opens to send out reinforcements, which means we need to move fast. Hopping on yet another jet ski, we race forward towards the main island and punch right through the now opened gate. Come to think of it, this whole plan wouldn't have worked if they had just closed the gate behind their guys. Also, Jack has superhuman strength jumping abilities and probably could have just scaled that thing anyway. Whatever, now that we're finally on the main island, we need to find that girl and then a way out of here. From here, the game is back to being linear again, which is fine because I think it does work, although the game does kinda get worse from here on out. We don't ever see that kind of free roam element return, unfortunately, but what we do get is more of the same instincts gameplay I was craving, so whatever, it's fine. We've reached the primary island now, and there are a lot of pirates between us and Cade. In case you were wondering, yeah, the driving is still awful, but it does feel like they tried to tighten the responsiveness of the vehicles up a little? I actually genuinely could not tell if they had tweaked the driving or if I had just gotten used to it now to the point where it didn't seem as bad, but either way, there were not enough adjustments made to make a noticeable difference. But hey, they gave us a rocket launcher on the back of our Jeep, so there's that, at least. Getting past this massive barrier is less of an issue than you might imagine, again, because we have superpowers, so the prior vehicle section feels like it was just an excuse to give us a Jeep with a rocket turret. We do find Cade being held captive with a gun to her head just beyond that gate, and the game lets us go crazy with infinite stamina as we completely butcher these pirates, all the while Cade hotwires the Jeep we found. Once she gets it cranked, we hop in the gunner seat and take off.
Which brings us back to where this all started.
When I floor it, you open fire.
Well, we're back at it, and it's another turret section. Yes, this still counts. This is actually a relatively long turret section too, like they weren't slacking on the amount of level they designed here specifically for this one sequence. It's like almost 5 minutes long, which is not a good thing, even if they were going out of their way to make it seem as interesting as possible. The end of this section isn't even very compelling narrative-wise either.
You work out a lot, don't you?
Who was writing this dialogue?
I don't think I properly thanked you for rescuing me, Jack.
Damn straight. But you really think now's the time? Hey, no fair. Where exactly are we going?
The only place around where a big man like you might move unnoticed. The mainland.
I was afraid you were gonna say that.
You'd rather stay here and die?
No. But if a big-ass fanatic wants to feed you to his inbred men, don't say I didn't warn you.
We have to split up.
Wait, what?
I have a safe house on the far side of town. I'll meet you there.
Where are you going?
I have some errands to run.
Hang on, what is even happening in this game right now?
Carver, get there as quietly as you can. If you show up with an angry mob on your ass, you're on your own.
Yeah, I love you too.
You love her too. Bro, what? I've become exhausted by this game at this point. This is the last instance in my time with this game where I genuinely attempted a real stealth section. There's a small series of houses that clearly belong to some local pirate fishermen here, so I actually managed to pull off some successful stealth gameplay here, which is not an easy thing to do in this game. Before too long, however, it descends into the traditionally expected chaos. What's weird is that we see Kay drive off in a boat in the other direction, but literally roughly 10 minutes later, we find her less than half a mile inland being held hostage by none other than Doyle himself, from the original Instincts campaign.
Who are you? Why did your boyfriend kill the magistrate?
I didn't.
Carver!
I should have known you'd be mixed up in this, Doyle.
I'm not mixed up in anything. I was here already to get some solid intel on these recent rebel attacks, but your snafu could destabilize the whole region, so now I'm damage control.
Jack, who the hell is this guy?
He's a CIA NOC with a nasty history of making my life a living hell. You two should get along famously.
Enough with the small talk. Rumors are that the rebels are making their move. The assassination must have been their first step.
I don't care, Doyle. I just want to get as far away from this third world nightmare as I can.
In due time, Carver. First, we gotta clean up your mess. Get down!
Well, that's a conveniently placed barrier.
You have to hold them off on your end.
I'll get her out of here.
Forget her. Get me out of here.
Meet me at the shrine overlooking the town.
Try not to get killed.
I have to admit, I am so endeared by Jack's personality in these games. He's just such a selfish prick, and I love it. Playing as the main character with superpowers, screaming the phrase, "Forget her, get me out of here," is so funny. Although she has lied to him repeatedly since he got here. Oh yeah, and we're stuck here in another tower defense section. They're starting to feel lazy actually, and the levels in general begin to feel a bit rushed pretty much until the last level of this game. We do wind up pushing our way deeper into some kind of cave structure, but luckily it's just a small section before we're back into the expected swampy mainland of the island we're on. Again, the game is pretty visually God damn it! It's another vehicle section again. How did they look at these driving mechanics and say to themselves, yeah, this is fine? Not once, but twice! This looks like the first game, but again, this is the expansion released a year later. This mission would not be that long if you knew where you were going. Like, it would realistically be a 20 to 30-ish minute level, but I spent over an hour just trying to figure out where the hell to go. I haven't talked about the collectibles in this game yet because they're kind of tacked on, but now is a good time to do so, I think. This is one of the few new features they added in for the Predator Xbox 360 re-release of Instincts/Evolution and was not present in the original game. In both of the respective campaigns, each level features multiple hidden collectibles called Dr. Krieger's Secret Vials. Their in-game model is just a reused asset of the Evolution power-up from the multiplayer, and they hide them all over each of the maps. Collecting them gives you nothing, and is a pretty uniquely pointless addition to the game, even for fans of it like me who genuinely enjoy it. Yeah, even I don't want to wander around the map looking for these tiny vials for no reason. This is for hardcore completionists only. And I mean, come on, the least they could have done is make separate collectibles for the two campaigns. Krieger has nothing to do with the Evolution story, and we're who knows how many hundreds of miles away from that whole operation, so finding his vials here just added to the tacked-on feeling of it all. The last portion of this map has us scaling up the side of a large mountain to meet Doyle at a shrine near the top. Most of the levels in this game are just long stretches of enemies and land between interactions with Doyle, actually. The writing and pacing is pretty lazy this time around. You could straight up remove half of these levels and the plot would not be affected in any way, but the game would be a tighter overall experience with less filler. Although it would take it from a 7-hour campaign down to around a 3.5-hour one, which is honestly what needed to happen, but then they wouldn't have been able to get away with selling it as a standalone sequel.
Let go of me!
I see you're still a hit with the ladies, Doyle.
Talk some sense into her. She needs to get out of town. The pirates won't protect her any longer, and the rebels are out to kill her.
This is my home!
You're a smart girl. You should be able to find the gutter anywhere you go. Look, Jack, I met with my contact. If you help me, I think I can square Adil's murder with the Qadir government.
But I didn't kill him.
Afraid that's a minor detail.
What do I have to do?
Help me stop the rebel offensive. God knows you have the skills.
You want me to take on an entire rebel army?
Think of it as free anger management. 2 nights ago, the pirates captured a rebel spy. We need to know what he knows. Intelligence has them torturing him in a basement somewhere, down there.
And I'm supposed to knock on every door in town?
The basement in question is used to store fishing nets. The smell will be all over the pirates holding them. You can pick that up with your senses, right?
Yeah. Look, you should listen to Doyle. I'd hate for anything bad to happen to you.
To your money, you mean?
What's the matter, baby? Somebody hurt you once?
You must be thinking of yourself.
I do actually think this part of the game is really cool. After making our way up this mountain in the last mission, we now get to scale down the side of this cliff as a means of infiltrating this small shanty town. This is easily the biggest, most elaborate village-like map we see across either of the 2 campaigns, so it is really interesting to navigate the series of buildings where people are currently holed up and living right now. The only really challenging thing about this area, though, is locating the hostage they've been torturing for the past 2 days. Finding the basement they've been keeping him in took me nearly 20 minutes, but eventually I did manage to hunt it down and lay eyes on our target.
Samaru's warrior, have you come to carry me to heaven?
That depends on what you told them.
Nothing, I swear. I kept our secret. The truck is safe, filled with weapons and supplies. But they caught me before I could hide it at the refinery.
Where is it now?
In the jungle by the river. Please, I beg you, give me an honorable death.
Yeah, get out of town. The safest way is through the Bursar storehouse. And Jack, I wouldn't count on getting your money back. Kate gave me the slip.
Yeah, that makes sense. After granting this guy's last request, we head back upstairs into what I thought was another tower defense section, but actually wasn't. It took me like 10 minutes and a few deaths to realize that I wasn't glitched and it wasn't just a super long section. The game just expected you to remember that you could super jump out of the destroyed ceiling, which, okay, fine, fair enough. Putting infinitely burning flame walls in front of all of the doors felt a bit manipulative though. It's like the game gaslit me into thinking I had to hold out until an opening was available or something, but nope. Just jump right out of the roof and head out like nothing happened. Further inland, just on the other side of this shantytown, we find a small armory to break into and...
I don't believe it.
So, you're doing a little shopping with my dough?
What can I say? A girl has needs.
Women.
Luckily, the armory is still loaded and we're able to pick and choose our desired arsenal and load up on guns, grenades, and what I thought was about to be a good time. Until I saw the ATV and realized it was actually just about to be another vehicle section. The next 30 minutes across the entire rest of this level is just various starts and stops across a length of vehicle parts, so let's just montage it.
Why don't you come down here and try it for yourself?
Well, that was close. How did Doyle even beat us here anyway?
The rebels have seized the refinery. If they get entrenched there, they can use it as a launching pad to take over the whole region. We need to split up and find that truck. It's our best bet for getting through the roadblocks.
Okay, look, like I said earlier, this footage was acquired on an emulator, which seemed to work for the most part, but for some reason, this mission in particular just would not work. I don't know why, and I tried a few different settings and restarts, which normally the lighting or bloom issues would solve themselves upon a checkpoint load, but not in this mission. So the whole thing is plagued by some hideous texture and lighting problems that made some parts of it nearly unplayable. Since I couldn't work it out, I kinda just speed ran as much of it as I could to try and determine if these issues would be relegated to only this mission or if they would continue into the rest of the levels too. Thankfully, they were only showing up on this map, and since this level is relatively short anyway, I figured it would be fine. I'll just give the cliff notes here. Essentially, since we're waging a one-man war against the local rebel regime, Doyle has enlisted us to find a truck to get us through a series of roadblocks and into a nearby refinery that has been seized by said rebels. Doyle and I managed to find the truck that he sneaks into the back of, and he suggests we stay stealthy by hiding on top of the truck as we cruise straight into the refinery, but since we're playing as Jack Carver in a game that doesn't really favor stealth on a mission so loaded with glitches that I can barely see, I just hijack the thing and blow straight through all of the roadblocks. Of which there are like 3, by the way, and punch right through the refinery's front door. Special delivery! This part is actually harder than it looks, and I had to replay it more than a couple of times to get through it. We're basically a distraction here, holding down the aggro while Doyle sneaks into the refinery to do whatever it is he's doing in there. Once we put down a few dozen rebel insurgents, we can make our way into the building to meet up with Doyle again.
We need to flood the drainage tunnels by diverting the water from this underground river, make it useless to the rebels. I want you to destroy the flood pump controls, the flood doors, and the auxiliary pumps here, here, and here, while I go down below and open the main valve assembly.
How come you only get one job?
Because I don't have your skills. Any more questions?
Alright, so we need to find these auxiliary pumps, flood doors, and the floodgate controls. The rebels are sending their best now. These guys are significantly better armed, and, Meta.
I hate meta.
Back to what we were doing, this is another impressive little area they've built, and an enormous relief from the constant jungle theme we're surrounded by almost all of the time in these campaigns. I really like playing through these more industrial looking set pieces, even if they're kind of small and short-lived. So we go in and destroy the auxiliary pumps. Softly open the main valve.
Good. Find the service stairs down to the central cavern. Meet me at the main valve assembly.
And then head for the door to try and find the underground cavern so we can find the...
Get off me!
Wow, you're turning into quite the
How do
stalker.
these two people keep getting
can't
ahead of
warn
me
you.
like this?
So you do care.
Don't get excited. The airport was lousy with rebels. Thought I'd be better off with you. Unfortunately,
What?
the Kadir government doesn't trust Doyle's ability to get this done. I heard they're planning on blowing this place back into the Stone Age.
When?
Now, run!
Well, the local government is elected to just straight up destroy the whole island. It's always something around here. We link back up with Cade and Doyle tells us that despite the bombs hitting the upper levels, they won't be able to destroy the floodgates below. It's still up to us, and of course us in this case means Jack, by himself, because Doyle doesn't have superpowers. Although the valve is just up ahead, so we shouldn't have to do too much. Oh, of course we turn around to see Doyle get defenestrated and Cade get abducted. So since we're already here, let's go ahead and kill this dude and fulfill our obligation to Doyle. Easy enough. With that done, we can get out of here before this place explodes.
How the hell do we get out of here, Doyle?
If this channel's a tributary, it should drain out into the main river.
If?
The maps weren't clear. It's possible.
Terrific.
What follows is a vehicle section of trying to escape these exploding underground caverns. Is that redundant?
We're going too fast!
What, you think this is easy?
It's not. Eventually we do make it out of the caves to...
Doyle!
Well, that's great. We're stranded who knows where, and Doyle probably isn't going to make it.
Are we dead?
Well, it's not hot enough to be hell. And we sure ain't going to that other place. Don't move. You got 3 broken bones I can see. Definite internal bleeding, maybe a concussion.
Don't let them escape. Open fire!
Can you guess what this is? This is the worst one across both campaigns. You've got very little ammo, nowhere to run, and there's like 50 rebels all storming you who have the high ground. This takes so long, dude. It's not good. It's not good at all. I don't think I would call it outright bad, but it's not good. Once we finally overcome this rebel onslaught, we move on to the rest of this penultimate level, and it's weird, man. It just gets very weird. This campaign isn't as long as the base Instincts one, but man, does it feel longer. We're back to the same jungle aesthetic that we've been dealing with this whole time and staging an assault on a small rebel camp, and for a moment, I'm reminded of my time in the first campaign. But that's it, because now we're leaning full tilt into the animalistic nature of this game's themes that it's been kind of ignoring for the better part of this campaign so it could tell a mediocre filler subplot about taking out a rebel army by ourselves. We left Doyle on that beach by himself so we could go find a boat and drive us off this island, but predictably when we get back to where we left him, he's gone. All we have to go on is the scent coming from his blood, so we use that to begin pursuing him into the mainland. For some reason. I'm not really sure why Jack is trying to save him, actually. It's not like he's expressed anything but contempt and distrust for Doyle for the past 2 campaigns, but Jack decides we need to follow him and rescue him because he was endeared to him all this time after all? Oh yeah, and this is the weird thing I mentioned earlier. A lot of the later Far Cry games started making a trend of having certain wacky, trippy sequences crop up out of nowhere throughout the story, and while Instincts lacked that for the most part, Evolution introduces it in full swing here. The tribalistic music pounding in the background as you track these different scents and hear things around you stalking you really made this feel like the kind of Far Cry game we would see so much more of in later entries. This goes on for a while, and we gun down a solid plethora of more rebel soldiers before we finally figure out what the hell is stalking us around.
Something in those darts. I'm losing my strength.
Without your stolen power, you were nothing. A fraud.
So we've met the locals, and not only do they have the same powers that we do, they're also carrying around a dart gun loaded with poison darts that temporarily diminishes our feral powers and returns us to normal. Although they come back pretty fast, it's still pretty annoying to deal with. Luckily, these local freaks have an easily exploitable weakness: bullets. It's really amusing that here and now, halfway through the second to last level of the campaign, we're introduced to a new ability. Jack can now climb up trees after seeing a local do so.
I wonder if I can do that.
We climb up the tree and find the remains of a plane hanging there before seeing a message he left behind. Some kind of message on a special frequency. Although the rebels have put up a few jammers around these trees that we'll need to take care of. I have to admit, actually, this little section of level is really creative. It takes place almost exclusively within these balconies built into the trees. We can look down and see how far up we are, and if we fall, we can actually climb back up in the earlier bits of this, but not in the later part. This is easily one of the most creative shows of level design across the game. I mean, there is just an awesome display of map layout creativity here. It's super linear, of course, which most Far Cry games would abandon after this, but still, it's a really cool way to spice up the way these levels look and feel while existing within the limitations of being set on an island jungle. We follow these balconies all the way up as they continuously ascend higher and higher while destroying the 3 transmitters blocking Doyle's signal until we finally see his radio sitting on a bridge waiting for us. We're getting close, and he's still leaving us breadcrumbs. In one final push, we fight our way up a very steep inclined hill towards the top of this mountain while dozens of the local warriors and rebels all pour down towards us trying to kill us. There's a very clear theme here of this level being an uphill battle. From starting on a beach as a small army descends around you to fighting up a literal hill killing your way to the top. Just hold on a little while longer, Doyle. On the other side of that hill, we find ourselves on the literal top portion of this mountain. Just how big is this island anyway? The game tells us this campaign takes place in Micronesia, but are there really mountains this big on any of those islands? If anyone has been to or lives in Micronesia, let me know if this is at all reasonable for a Micronesian mountain. A chopper flies above us, seemingly taunting us, and by looking, we can tell that Doyle is on board, so he's still alive and they know we're coming after him. In fact, it seems like they want us to. What comes next is simple. 10 minutes of environmental platforming. I'm not even kidding. The rest of this mission is just weaving between small combat arenas and platforming sections where you use your powers to jump, grab onto cliffs and vines, and jump more to further ascend these cliffs. There's bits of combat in between these platforming portions, of course, but it's mostly that. Wrapping up one of those platforming bits, we find the stairs into some kind of ancient temple. There's no guards or snipers or anything, just a big empty building and a lot of blood. Looks like a lot of people died here, and that particular bit of blood looks like Doyle's. This is an invitation. Whoever is doing this actually is taunting us, and predictably when we walk into the building we find a trap waiting for us. But I do love this last level's look though. For some reason fighting through an ancient temple makes this almost feel like a different game. It's kind of hard to explain honestly. And look, here's the thing. This is a proper final level. Massive waves of enemies, demanded use of every ability you have, a horde of guns. I mean, this is the finale, and the game is inviting you to kill, so let's not disappoint. Looks like that wall is our ticket. Let's platform up there and get some answers. Which isn't something I expected to say in a Far Cry game, but it works really well here to be honest.
You force me to dirty my hands. Such arrogance. You act like you deserve those powers. A drunken criminal like you. Without sacrifice and devotion, you are no more than an animal. A slave to your instincts. Death will purge your soul.
And that's Far Cry Instinct's evolution. Nah, I'm just kidding. He grabs a branch and manages to live.
My gear. Purge my soul? I'm gonna purge his goddamn ass.
So this is an interesting bit of gameplay. Like I said earlier, it's more of that same platforming, but we lose all of our weapons and gear. I was excited about this because I thought the game was about to make us only fight unarmed mutants from here on out, as we too are unarmed, and really lean into the whole animal inside shtick it's been going for, but nah, you get a bunch more weapons like 5 minutes later and are back to the same kind of gameplay loop you've been playing. It's really a bit of a missed opportunity, but whatever. This is such a good finale though. Look at how climactic and epic this all is. The way everything has such a colder hue than what we've been seeing up to now, and the interesting look of these ancient temples. This wouldn't feel out of place in an Uncharted game actually. It kind of reminds me of that last bit in Uncharted 2 before you find the Lost City, if you guys remember that. There's not a whole lot more to say, honestly. We've kind of covered everything half to death at this point. This level can take you like an hour and a half or more if you play through it normal, but I was fortunate enough to find a hidden winding path up a hill where a hang glider was being stored and just fly right over a good chunk of arena. Thank God too, because, and I don't necessarily mean this in a bad way, I'm ready to be done with this now. Let's go find this dude and kill him. It's time to end this. Oh, hello there. So, how do you guys actually think this is going to play out for you?
It's time to end this!
Damn straight.
You're empty, Carver! A shell! Without focus, without heart, you could never hope to reach me, let alone defeat me!
Oh, I got heart, bitch. But you won't in a minute.
I've wasted too much time and energy on you. Shoot him in the head!
I tried to warn them, did I not? Yeah, believe it or not, that still is not where we finish this. There's a short final arena where we tackle what remains of this guy's feral guards, but obviously they're no match for us. Now can we finally kill this dude already?
Cade.
Your friend wept before he died. Called your name, but you never came.
He was a snake, but he was more of a man than you'll ever be.
You are cursed, Carver. Can't you see that? Your power has brought you death, not enlightenment. Death for all who come close to you.
Get out of here, Cade. I'll find you once I'm done with this asshole.
She's lost to you. Offered me money to let her go. But I told her that to win her life, she had to take yours. Your power is gone, and you will die knowing that she betrayed you.
Hardly surprising.
Jack.
The tragedy is complete.
Come on, Jack. Get up, dude. You have enhanced healing. Alright, finally, yes, the final battle, and a proper boss battle at that. It's got everything. Required environmental interaction, moving bosses, and even a second phase. It's not quite as hard as the boss battle against Crow was, but it is significantly better. For one thing, I love how the rebel leader jumps across these pillars like this, and we have to try and shoot him. Eventually I realized that we had to blow up all of these pillars so we couldn't jump to them anymore, but come on, I love this. It's so cool. Also, what was this dude's name again? Simaru? Yeah, I don't know, man. I think he's pretty cool conceptually, but I just didn't find him to be all that memorable. It took me forever to realize he was the rebel leader, despite the game trying to make that clear earlier. I like the fact that he has the same powers as Jack though, but he attained them naturally by utilizing the power of those white plants and activating his body's natural potential. Both of these games kind of feel like a Marvel movie, to be honest, with the way their plots are laid out. You know, ending with a final fight against a villain who has similar powers to the hero. The second phase of this boss battle is a little bit less creative, since we don't have the pillar element, but I like the idea of fighting across this small arena and dodging the very same vine traps we were using to kill people back in the first campaign. Of course, it got way easier when his AI got stuck and I just annihilated the poor guy. The game must have realized that my victory wasn't earned though, because it locked up before I could see that last scene and I had to replay the whole part again. Can we finally kill this dude now? Please?
I'll rip you in half, mongrel!
You keep forgetting the most important thing about us infidels. We cheat.
What does that even mean?
Oh God! Don't kill me, Carver. Please. I didn't know what else to do. I knew you'd kill him anyway. I thought you were too
Spare me the
strong.
tears. There was a time I would have done the same thing. It's just so human.
And that is Far Cry Instinct's evolution. Man, what do I even say about these two campaigns that I haven't said already across that very lengthy playthrough? Evolution in particular polished a lot of things that fell flat in the base Instincts campaign, but overall, I think I liked the Instincts plotline and levels quite a bit more. The first mission in Evolution, where you're free to roam around and approach those 3 small islands in a non-linear fashion, was really good, and the last level that implemented a lot more platforming, which I personally enjoyed, and a unique aesthetic was also great, but there are a solid handful of levels there in the middle that were just kind of a slog to get through. A lot of filler missions strung along a plotline so thin that it felt like a stretch even when compared to the campy plot of the first game. The whole thing was kind of middling and uninspired, save the first and last 15% or so of the game. But I still liked it, and I would really love to see a genuine port of both games over to the PC where we could optimize them and play them with a mouse and keyboard. That would not only escalate the experience by an immense amount, but would also get the series back to its roots a bit, both for Ubisoft and for the fans. Although, given the state of Ubisoft right now, I'm not holding my breath. Now, although the real Far Cry Instincts experience is found across the 2 campaigns we just talked about, there is another iteration of Far Cry Instincts Evolution that got altered and ported to the Wii called Far Cry Vengeance. In order to do this game properly, I would have had to buy a Wii and give it a playthrough, and there's just no way I was about to do that given its reputation. But luckily enough, I happen to know a guy who not only loves playing bad games, but especially loves playing bad Wii games. So I asked if he'd be interested in playing through Vengeance and coming in to tell us a bit about it.
When Evan asked me to contribute to his Far Cry Instincts review, I was more than eager to help out. I quickly realized that I don't own any Xbox consoles, and thus could not play Instincts, Evolution, or Predator. Fortunately, I do own a Nintendo Wii.
We've got one.
Which happens to have its very own ground-up remake of Far Cry Evolution in the form of Far Cry Vengeance. Since I'm sure Evan will thoroughly cover Instincts and Evolution, I will predominantly only be talking about what's unique to this particular entry in the series. Having played both Conduit games and the original Red Steel, I'm no stranger to shooters on the Nintendo Wii. Far Cry Vengeance, unfortunately, fares more closely to the latter, which isn't a huge surprise given they're both published by Ubisoft and were released within a month of each other very early in the Wii's lifespan. Red Steel's problems mostly stemmed from the developers basically having to create an entirely new way to interface with a first-person game. And while some of Far Cry's flaws could be explained in the same way, they run much deeper than simply a weird button layout. I didn't go into this planning on getting into the weeds about the story, since it is just a weird version of Evolution. As I said, I mostly wanted to talk about what's different about this particular version of the game. So, let's talk about the story.
Enough of this shit.
Despite being the same story as Evolution in broad strokes, for reasons beyond anyone's comprehension, Ubisoft opted to remake all of the cutscenes from scratch. It's not an uncommon practice in ports of games to less powerful hardware to take in-engine cutscenes and compress them down into video files to save space. However, in the case of Vengeance, not only did they choose to remake the cutscenes, but for some reason, they're still compressed video files. And in spite of this, they're compressed to a point that they're almost unwatchable. On top of that, several changes have been made to the events of the game for seemingly no reason. For instance, Jack does not have sex with Cade in the beginning of the game.
Are you complaining?
Well, not if we can go again.
This guy is just gone.
Shall we go inside and finish this?
Stay here and help unload the plane. And while you're at it, make sure these guns don't suddenly grow legs and walk away.
And the character of Doyle has been completely removed and replaced with another guy named Hien Do, who just serves the exact same role in the story, albeit, I don't know, slightly nicer than Doyle.
I'll try to access the hydraulic system through the underground tunnels. With any luck, I'll meet you inside.
I suppose I should also mention there's no subtitles in these cutscenes, despite them being present in Evolution. This is not the only time Ubisoft has done something like this. The original Assassin's Creed notoriously did not have subtitles either.
You are garbage! Human garbage!
Unsurprisingly, this being a Wii game, the cutscenes aren't the only place where the presentation is lacking. Considering that Ubisoft seemingly remade Evolution from the ground up for this release, it doesn't appear that any efforts were made to make sure that it would run adequately on the Wii hardware. Your closest ally in this game is pop-in of every variety. From textures to foliage to enemies and environmental objects, they all manifest out of thin air right before your very eyes. The frame rate also shits the bed pretty much any time the action begins to ramp up, particularly in the on-rails sections where Cade is driving a vehicle and you're manning a turret. And if it wasn't for the motion aiming, it'd be borderline impossible to keep your sights on a target in a lot of situations, but I'll get to the motion controls in a bit. This game is also particularly glitchy. More than once, my gun just turned invisible or didn't have a muzzle flash for some reason, and the game even crashed at one point, despite it being a not particularly hectic section of the game. The dedication to keeping the environmental physics and using the CryEngine on the Wii would be almost admirable if the game performed even semi-decently, but the whole thing just feels like it's falling apart at the seams. That said, this is a classic Far Cry game at its core. You are still a guy wearing a cool shirt with a gun on an island filled with clones of the same 2 or 3 vaguely ethnic pirates who all seem to have the collective intelligence of a pet rock.
Oh, it's like that!
Except for when they actually do wake up, at which point they alternate between running back and forth or shooting you with perfect precision from about a mile away. But this is a Wii game. We all know what that means. The real star, the crown jewel, this game's entire reason for existing is the motion controls. Of course, the gang at Ubisoft Montreal knew better than to settle for regular old controller support. No, Vengeance does not permit the use of either a classic controller or GameCube controller, despite the former releasing a month before the game, and the latter having 4 massive dedicated sockets on the side of the console to use. Far Cry Vengeance uses the Wii Remote and Nunchuck with no other control options available, and the layout you're provided is woefully inadequate to persevere with the journey ahead. But let's get to the actual control layout. Basic movement like walking and aiming are handled by the analog stick and motion sensor. Pretty standard stuff for the Wii. The D-pad allows for things like crouching and cycling through your weapons, while the C button reloads. Again, nothing crazy. But, like many third-party Wii games, it's where the motion controls come in that things get a bit out of hand. You have to swing the nunchuck upwards to jump and to the side to regenerate health. It's not uncommon to be trying to heal in the middle of a tense firefight and find yourself jumping in place over and over again. And that's if the nunchuck even registers your input. It's also not uncommon to attempt to jump only for the input not to register and Jack to walk straight off of a cliff. The nunchuck is also used to throw grenades, rocks, and molotovs by holding the Z button to prepare whatever you're going to throw and then swinging the nunchuck and releasing. The idea is that the speed at which you move the nunchuck will dictate how far the grenade will go, which is indicated by a meter on the lower right. But more often than not, Jack will just drop the grenade an inch in front of your face. I often find myself running up to groups of enemies, dropping a grenade, and running away. But even this tactic was hit or miss, as a lot of the time, this would be the one time Jack would actually throw the grenade with some distance. Things get even more dicey where the Wii remote is involved. As one might expect from a shooter on the Wii, aiming is performed by moving the Wii remote. It sounds simple enough, but I found the game frequently lost track of my cursor for seemingly no reason. I thought that perhaps maybe my Wii remote was getting on in its old age, so I busted out Red Steel to test it, and had no such problem. Using your scope requires gesturing the remote forward. Of the various motion-sensitive actions of the game, I found this had the least frequent rate of failure, so long as you performed it somewhat slowly. Lastly, gesturing downward is required to perform a melee attack. This almost never works, and has the added bonus of completely throwing off your aim. It's not all bad. Vengeance has a few interesting ideas in place. There's a decent amount of customization in the controls menu, though not nearly as much as the Conduit games. There is an attempt at an aim assist, though I found that it mostly awkwardly jerked the reticle around and actually made it harder to aim. But thankfully you can turn it off. Holding the A button locks Jack in whatever direction he's currently facing, allowing you to freely move your aim around the screen, which I found to be actually fairly useful. The vehicles, which are a major part of the Far Cry series, actually control pretty well. This is one area where I could argue the motion controls actually are an improvement, since being able to aim with the remote while steering with the analog stick feels much more natural. It's a shame that the vehicle sections are so few and far between. Where the controls fail you the most is in the segments that require platforming. As mentioned before, the jump command is hit or miss. The oil refinery and Rebel Fortress stages in particular require you to climb walls while using the remote to look around and the nunchuck to leap from one vertical surface to another, which goes about as well as you would expect. And the bits where you're required to shimmy sideways across a wall seem to have no consistently reliable input to get through without some degree of pure luck. In spite of the game's unpleasant control scheme, I persevered all the way to the end. There is a boss fight with Semaru. He hops around on some pillars before jumping through a wall, and then he just kind of stands there and lets you unload entire clips in his face for a bit. Then you get a QuickTime event that you seemingly can't fail, where you punch Cade in the face before the real final boss begins. It's exactly the same as before, except occasionally he'll melee you, killing you instantly. What else? Well, there's also cheat codes, but I could only get the level select code to work. Various websites can't seem to agree on which cheats work with this version of the game, or whether or not specific characters need to be capitalized. And by the time I finished playing, I had no desire to mess around with them much anyway. So if you are utterly desperate to play Far Cry on a console, and for some reason you only have access to a Wii, it is technically a playable video game. That said, I wouldn't recommend it as anything more than a weird curiosity.
Thanks for dropping in to lend us your thoughts, man. I appreciate it. If you guys want to check out a fun channel that makes a habit of streaming old obscure games here on YouTube, then definitely go check him out. I left a link in the description below. Now, I gotta talk about something pretty special in this game. One of the coolest things about Far Cry Instincts when it first released on the original Xbox was the brilliant map editor. There's hundreds of items to place around the world, and you can even alter the terrain itself. And when the map is done, you could even upload it to the Xbox Live servers and play it online. This thing is awesome, and back when I was a kid, I spent dozens, and I mean literally dozens of hours just playing with this editor and making different little maps to play with and look at. Although this was a complete waste of time, since at no point did I ever have an Xbox Live subscription while I was playing this on the original Xbox. I didn't get a subscription to Xbox Live until way later in 2010, roughly 2 weeks before Halo Reach dropped, and by that point there was no multiplayer community for this game. So making maps back then, even after having an Xbox Live subscription, would have been pointless. But I did love it, man. Let's talk a little bit about the music too, because it's awesome. Pretty much every video game you play these days tends to feature a relatively generic orchestral soundtrack, sometimes throwing in a few production tricks and maybe a synth or two, but back in the day, video game scores were kind of like the Wild West. Both of the main Instincts campaign soundtracks were composed by Paul Haslinger, and dude, it's so good. He incorporates so many different elements and themes across all of these tracks, ranging from crunchy electric guitar to a variety of ambient synths, slow operatic choir, intensive strings, tribalistic percussion, and more. No matter what track I was hearing or where it came in, it never felt out of place. Seriously, great work here, Paul. I listened to the soundtrack repeatedly for the last few months while working on this, and even during several very solid gym sessions. Seriously, I really liked how he handled the score for this game. All that said, the reception to the original Instincts was actually very good at the time, showing a Metacritic of 85. Despite its various flaws, the truth is that this thing was an awesome addition to the original Xbox's available library. Most people who played it generally enjoyed it back then. I think I'd say something similar of the Evolution campaign too, although it scored a bit lower, showing a Metacritic of just 78, which is still pretty good all things considered. The 360 port of both games, called Predator, also scored a 78 to fittingly match the Evolution campaign since they both released on the same day. Although a lot of people don't talk about these games anymore since the series has steered away into such a different direction, I know that so many people really did like these games back in the day, myself included. Man, what a roller coaster. The story of Jack Carver is complicated, and this depiction of him is not as a hero, but of a selfish mercenary thrust into a series of increasingly bad situations very much against his own will. His life already bad, but forever made worse by the injections forced on him that made him more animalistic and feral than ever before. Cursed with these powers that make him stronger, faster, and deadlier than most people on the planet. The gameplay is severely dated, and the vehicle sections, while not a deal breaker, are certainly not a very enjoyable experience. But there's so few games like Far Cry Instincts. It scratches a certain kind of power fantasy itch that you really can't find anywhere else, at least not that I can think of off the top of my head. It's brutal, edgy, visceral, and downright animalistic. There's a reason I was able to put the OST on and power through several different gym days. These games evoke a primal sense of power that you have to struggle to find even by today's standards. What can I say? It's just got good aura. These games are far from perfect though. Both campaigns are riddled with flaws, rough level design, bad AI, unpolished gameplay mechanics, silly dialogue, and a fairly thin plotline overall. Not to mention the Vengeance port on the Wii is actually just objectively bad. But I still love them though. The Far Cry Instincts saga is a particularly unique part of the franchise's history, and although its true roots go back even further to the original Far Cry by Crytek, it was the Instincts games that set the series up with most of the signature tropes and concepts that players would go on to see in later entries down the line. So yeah, these games have their share of shortcomings and failures, but so many of those come as side effects from the massive ambition of their concepts. Sometimes we can overlook flaws to see the greater successes. After all, every product will come with its pros and cons, and every game will have its moments of missing the mark. Like Jack said,
it's just so human.
Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I had such a blast making this video, and I gotta tell you, I wasn't even expecting to. I plan a solid portion of my videos way in advance, like months ahead of time, and this one wasn't included. I just out of nowhere felt this intense urge to listen to the Far Cry Instincts soundtrack, and that made me want to play the game, and then I figured, what the hell? I may as well make a video on it because I literally love this game and I want to talk about it anyway. And so here we are. If you enjoyed your time watching me cover this game, then consider subscribing because I cover all kinds of older games like this, and if you haven't already, then maybe drop a comment with your thoughts. That actually does help me out a lot in the algorithm. Thanks so much also to my members. You guys rock, and I appreciate you. If you love what I do here and want to support my efforts, then definitely consider becoming a member, because making these videos takes a lot of time and work. These are absolutely a labor of love, and I very much love them, but all the support helps also. Not to mention my members also receive a lot of my content early, as well as some fun member-only content. Thanks again so much to everyone for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video, but until then, that's all I've got for you.